the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got a drop
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and a very good evening. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock as usual. And coming up at midnight, a really interesting phoner here for you. And it's one of those that I'm going into where I don't really know where I'm going to come out of this conversation, because I don't genuinely know enough about the subject. So you're going to have to help me out with this. So I don't know. Okay, let me tell you what it is. Gamers who carry out virtual rapes in the metaverse should be charged as real life sex attackers, a legal expert has insisted. Assaults are rife in the digital digital avatars used by women and children in the online world, which is claimed can leave them with trauma similar to real ordeals. And I don't know if you remember a year ago, I think it would have been, that we talked about a story where the police for the first time ever investigated an online sex abuse. The case was thought to have been the first time that the UK police had investigated a virtual sex crime. I remember we were talking about that and discussing whether, you know, it could ever, the woman was saying that she felt like she had been assaulted, she felt that it was rape, and we were sort of discussing as to whether that could be the case. This actually is a little bit more nuanced. It's really I suppose where gaming is going, where people can wear these headsets now, and they can, in the not too distant future, I think they're around now in some cases, you can wear clothing where you feel the impact of somebody touching you in the metaverse. So it is something that maybe this is a future crime that really should be considered to be a crime, but I don't know where you are with it right now. I find it quite extraordinary that you are able to rape another character in a virtual world. I would have thought that that ability would not have been allowed by all the zeros in coding. I would have thought that that would have been, I don't know, maybe I'm naive. Like I said, I don't really understand. I don't game. I'm not a gamer. I never have been. And so I wonder if we are looking here at crimes that should be considered as real life crimes. I suppose if you've got the attitude that you're going to rape somebody, you're going to sexually assault somebody, and you do it online, how close is that to you doing it in the real world? I mean, I can't imagine a non-rapist would want to rape an avatar, for example. So maybe arresting somebody who's raped an avatar as an avatar will prevent a real-life rape. I don't know, you tell me. I mean, as far as I'm aware, there's all sorts of violence and murders and killings and things like that that go on in games. So are we now saying that that would make you a murderer? I don't know. That's where I'm sort of lacking in knowledge. So I am interested in this because, especially about these suits now where you feel the impact of somebody touching you or whatever, because in the future, if you feel the attack, then it is an attack, isn't it? I don't know. You're going to have to help me out with this. 0344 499 1000. Should gamers who carry out virtual rapes in the metaverse be charged as real-life sex attackers? You can also send me a message. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Right, before that, Cody Darla will be here, the comedian and comedy writer. He's going to be here to take us through the papers for Wednesday. Michelle Polino will be joining us from LA to talk about how Hollywood is feeling about the idea of tariffs on their movies. She's also going to talk us through the Met Gala. Have you seen some of the things they were wearing? And the Diddy trial latest. Mal Fletcher will be here. Futurists, a teaching union, raised concerns about AI dehumanising schools. So how much should AI be involved in the teaching of our children? So all of that to come through the next 3 hours. But first, as I mentioned, US President Donald Trump has suggested in a post on Truth Social in the middle of the night that he wants to hit movies made in foreign countries with 100% tariffs. The trouble is that nobody really knows what that means, what part of a film. Films are like cars in a way. They're made, bits of them are made in different countries and then they're all pulled together. Later he said he sort of already slightly rolled back on it, although you never know with him, that he would be consulting with Hollywood execs, and trade negotiation between the UK and US is expected to also include film tariffs. This would be absolutely devastating for the British film industry, which brings in about £1.36 billion a year and employs around 195,000 people. So there's a lot of very worried people at the moment regarding films. Well, let's talk to Johnny Hearn now, who's our filmmaker, broadcaster and talk film reporter. And I wanted to talk to you about this job because I know you're right now making a film,
yes.
Right? And it struck me every time I watch a movie, a big movie, it takes about 10 minutes to get into the film because there are so many co-production companies. There are some that are, you know, you see Polish names or Russian names or South Korean names or British companies. What does a Hollywood film mean anymore?
That's a very good question, and actually probably the crux of this entire thing about the tariffs. Yeah, what does constitute an American film, or to put Donald Trump's words, a foreign film?
Yeah.
Because yes, films are international. Co-production is a very big thing in.
Well, films
in
are so
filmmaking.
expensive, aren't they? That,
Yes.
that there is that whole sharing of the cost.
Even major studios will share the costs of some of their biggest most expensive films, because they just can't take the risk. They can afford to make the film, but they can't afford to risk losing $250 million if it flops, which they occasionally do. Just, you know, the bigger the budget doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. So a lot of that risk is spread out, and the way it's done is that films are not shot entirely in one place. You might shoot all your exteriors in one country. You might shoot all your interiors, which will probably be a studio set, in another country. You might then do your post-production, your editing, in another country. You might do all your visual effects or your post-production visual effects in another country as well, because different countries will offer different tax breaks for you to go and work in that particular country. And if you can get, you know, the best tax break for your post-production, the best for your exteriors, best for your interiors, whatever, you can actually get back quite a large percentage of the budget, and which is called soft money. And a lot of films are made in that way, with that factored into the finance plan before you actually make a movie.
So my understanding is that the ambassadors to Hollywood, which is Jon Voight, Mel Gibson and one
Sly
other...
Stallone. Yeah.
Oh, Sly Stallone, thank you.
Them, yeah.
The three of them, that actually Voight was trying to push the idea of the carrot rather than the stick, to say, look, if you want movies to be made in America, where they can be, I mean, obviously if you need a London like Mission Impossible, it's set in that city, it needs to be, it would be stupid to try and mock that up somewhere else. But if you're gonna do that, he was saying we need to incentivize, so better tax breaks on a federal level, because they might be on state levels, different states. I think that's what Gavin Newsom of California was also asking for, just saying, look, we need to have more carrot, and Trump's gone immediately to stick.
Well, that's the thing. The reason why, Hollywood has seen production drop by about 40% in the last 10 years.
Wow, that is big.
Which is a large amount.
But is that COVID? Is that...
It's a lot of things. COVID is one of it. The writers and actors strike was another one. But mainly it's because production has moved elsewhere. Canada now actually substitutes as America for a lot of American films and American TV series, particularly places like Vancouver and Toronto, that offer very good tax breaks. It's also a bit cheaper to film there, and you have very good crews and actors in Canada, and it looks like America, and that's why a lot of movies and a lot of TV series particularly are shot in Vancouver and Toronto. But also you have big studios in Australia now. The Australian film industry has really come to life in the last sort of 2 decades or so. You've got many more studios in the UK now, and other countries around the world. New Zealand, for example, there's a big studio in Rome. There's big studios in other countries, in Budapest, in Hungary, for example. Eastern Europe has really opened up to become a big place for filming because it's cheaper and they offer tax breaks. So when you need to make your movie, you can spend the money in this country.
And
they
unique
give you
backdrops, right? If you want it to look like post-war Russia, or it's got to be way cheaper to go to somewhere like Budapest than it is.
A lot of period films, are done in Eastern Europe for that exact reason. You know, when Eastern Europe opened up after the fall of the Soviet Union, a lot of film production for period dramas moved to Eastern Europe because it looked like Western Europe 200 years ago.
Yeah, because I know that from Berlin, because behind the wall in Berlin, nothing, all those buildings were original. On the western side, they'd been knocked down in the 70s and the 60s, and horrible things were built. But on the eastern side of Berlin, it was absolutely untouched. Beautiful. Not that West Berlin isn't. I love Berlin, but the buildings, you could see that they still had the same old buildings.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of film production has moved to Eastern Europe, and it's become a big centre. So countries very cleverly have thought, okay, well, let's incentivize people to come to our countries to film, to invest money into the country. So you go there, and as long as you spend a certain amount of money or a certain percentage of the budget in that country, you will get a certain percentage back from the government, because they know that any amount that they invest into the film, they will get back several-fold in money that's spent into the country. So what has happened is that studios particularly as films get more and more expensive, have been looking at that saying, well, if we can save 10% somewhere, we're going to go somewhere else and do it. It makes sense. They don't do it because it's fun. It's logistically more difficult for an American studio to shoot a film in Australia than it is to shoot it just around the corner in Los Angeles. Of course it's logistically more complicated, but it saves a lot of money. And if you can save $10-20 million on a big budget movie, it's a lot of money. So yes, if you want to bring film production back to America, what you need to do is, like you say, the carrot, not the stick. What there isn't in America is a federal tax credit. In the UK we have, I think it's just changed in the last year, it's now the audiovisual expenditure credit. It's gone up from, it used to be about 20%, it's gone up to about 34% now, which means you can get back on your core spend, things that are eligible, you can get back up to 34% from the government, which is great, and that will encourage more people to come to the UK. There isn't anything like that in America. Independent states have them, and they're sort of range from sort of 10, 20, 30%. Georgia is one of the best ones. This is why a lot of films get made in Georgia, because they incentivize filmmakers to leave Los Angeles and go to Georgia. So that there are individual states ones, but there is no federal tax credit. So if you really want to bring filmmaking back to America, stop it from going to Canada and other places, make a federal tax credit of say 20%, and say you can have that on top of the individual state credits, which means it will be cheaper to make films in America than it is to make them in Europe or Eastern Europe or Australia, New Zealand, or whatever.
But I mean, I understand that completely, and of course that makes total sense. But you know, when an industry sleeps like Hollywood has, you know, others awaken, and then you've got in the UK. We've developed the most brilliant sort of, you know, post-production here, and special effects, which you were saying that we didn't have before.
No, if you walk down Wardour Street in Soho in London in the 90s,
it's one of my favourite streets.
It was like a ghost town. There was nothing there really. Then this little thing called Harry Potter appeared, and what J.K. Rowling did was, when Warner Brothers approached her and said, you know, we want to buy the rights to this, we want to make these films, she said, okay, but I insist they have to be made in the UK with British cast and British crew, and they have to be shot and made entirely in the UK. And they agreed, because their original plan was to shoot it all in America with American cast and American crews. But J.K. Rowling said no, which was great and wonderful, except when it came to the post-production, there weren't any post-production facilities that could cope with it, certainly not the visual effects, and Harry Potter films have a lot of visual effects, as you know. But that industry really didn't exist in the UK, and so it had to be created almost. And as a result, then the UK in London now has become one of the leading centres for visual effects and post-production visual effects in the world. And so a lot of money has come into the UK. So a film might get shot even in America, might get shot somewhere else, but they will then send, because now it's all digital as well. It's, you know,
much easier. You don't have to fly tins of film around.
Reels and reels. You know, you can literally email the film to someone, and then they can do all the post visual effects on top somewhere, wherever they are. And so that side of the industry has really grown in the last sort of 20 years, and it's become one of the centres in the world. And the UK is brilliant now, but it's because they're able to do that.
But that then does go back to my first question, really. What constitutes a foreign-made film? Because you know, the industry has become decentralised, using a business term, and rightly so, because there are talents and industries in different countries that are able to, and perhaps better than. I mean, for example, you know, filmmakers in Britain are phenomenal. They've got a reputation. They've got a reputation,
and always have done.
Reputationally brilliant for the crews, for the riggers, for the producers, for every level of filmmaking has always attracted praise in this country. I mean, things like James Bond being made here, Mission Impossible now. I mean, I've got a list here: Wicked 1 and 2, Jurassic World, one of them, but you know, Snow White, A Quiet Place. All of these movies people are choosing to make in the UK, and it's not just because it's cheaper, because it's good. How do tariffs break that down? I mean, I mean, he's accusing other countries of stealing Hollywood. And it's like, no, people develop their own industries, and we happen to be pretty good at that. India happens to be pretty good at that.
Well, India makes
South Korea.
India makes more movies than Hollywood does every
they
year.
make them weekly, don't they?
But they're all the same film, and they're mainly released in
But
India.
they're really good, though.
Okay, I mean, let's put it on the other side. Okay, a film like Parasite won the Oscar for Best Film a few years ago. Trump didn't like that, of course, because it wasn't an American. It was a foreign language movie. He didn't like that.
He can't read.
A brilliant movie, but that's very clearly a non-American film.
Yeah, 100%.
The script is in Korean.
Korea.
The director's Korean. The cast is Korean. It was shot in Korea. It was financed in Korea. It's entirely a Korean movie. That's easy. What about Mission Impossible? It's an American company. It's Tom Cruise's company, based in America. Some of it's shot in America. A lot of it's shot in the UK. Other parts are shot in other places. The post-production somewhere else. Is that an American film? It's financed by America. The profits will go back to America. But is it an American film because it wasn't shot entirely in America? And if not, what percentage of the film has to be shot in America for it to qualify? Does it have to be 100%? In which case, if you have a film where most of it is shot in America, but there's one scene that's shot somewhere else because you have to have a particular landscape, say the desert in Jordan, and 1% of the film isn't shot in America, does that then mean it's a foreign film? Where do you draw that line between what is an American film and a non-American film, or a foreign shot movie? Where is that balance?
But it's the whole idea that you can take something and apply. I mean, again, could it be on ticket pricing? Well, you could say, well, 70% of this was not made in America, so we're applying a tariff of 70% to the ticket. I don't know.
Well, the problem with that is, I mean, this is the whole other side. If you're going to go down the tariffs route, where do you apply the tariffs? Okay, so is it on box office at the cinema? Okay, fine. Say you're paying $10, which is fairly cheap for a cinema ticket in America. That's now $20 if it doesn't qualify as an American film. Okay, but the problem is half of that money that you spend at the cinema to buy your ticket goes to the cinema. It doesn't go to the distributor. So do you put the 100% tariff on 50% of your ticket, in which case it will go up by 50%, or do you just double it anyway, in which case you're paying more because you're paying tariffs on the cinema's money, not the distributor's money?
I mean, it is a blunt instrument, especially when it's so easy to see how other countries have managed the film industry. And, you say 34% from the UK in tax breaks on viable things. But that brings in so much money and so much. And the other thing that is an issue here is that he stated saying that this is a national, he's using national emergency because the rest of the world is a threat to Hollywood. I mean, clearly that's the only way he can write the executive order on the tariff. But it shows a distinct lack of understanding of global interaction for a start, which is something that's good.
Yeah. Well,
right?
also,
especially artistic interaction.
Yeah. Well, also, films are not goods. They're not classified as goods.
No, they're services.
They're services, and there are no tariffs on services.
In fact, America's we're all in deficit.
Yes, to America.
Yeah.
For services, and the film industry,
they're in deficit to us.
In the film industry is a massive surplus for America. America makes far more money by selling films abroad, substantially more money by selling films abroad, than it spends on importing films. The foreign language movies, non-English films shown in cinemas in America account for about 2 to 3% of films that are shown in America. It's a tiny, tiny amount. So where do you draw this line? Where do you impose those tariffs? Do you impose the tariff on the distributors who are purchasing the rights, which is, again, it's a service, it's not goods that are shipped across the channel on DVDs anymore? Do you make it so that they pay tariffs on that? Okay, fair enough. Say a distributor goes to the Cannes Film Festival in the next couple of weeks, meets a sales agent, they say, oh, I like that movie, I want to buy the rights to release that in America, and they agree, I don't know, $100,000. Does that mean they then have to pay $200,000? Well, the problem with that is that rights to films are not sold by country, they're sold by territories. For example, Spain and Portugal together is the Iberian territory.
Right. Like books.
But America is not just America, it's North America. So it's America and Canada. So you buy the rights to America and Canada. But if a tariff is imposed on that, then that means that you're paying a tariff on something that's going to be shown in Canada. Well, how do you do that?
And Canada won't...
Of course not.
Charge the tariff?
No. So where do you draw the line on that tariff? How much is that tariff do you pay? Do you pay it on all of the money that the distributor has paid, even though some of that relates to Canada, or does it have to be a percentage? These little details have not been thought out.
And actually, the uncertainty is really rocking the UK film industry. Like I said, it employs 195,000 freelancers. And you know, all of those people that work on every single level, you know, even drivers, right? Drivers, rigger, all of those people are now really uncertain. And it just feeds that uncertainty in Hollywood itself, because Netflix shares have gone down because they are a filmmaker now.
Yes,
Netflix make programs, and they make, and so is Amazon. They are a film studio, and Apple, So I mean, that for them is going to have an impact on TV shows, presumably.
Well, again,
as well,
with something like Netflix or Amazon. Where do you apply the tariff on that? You can't apply it to the person watching it because they pay a monthly subscription. You're not paying per view. It's not pay per view. It's a monthly subscription. So do you impose it on something that they buy in? Okay, fair enough. So if Netflix buy in a film that somebody has made, which they had no financing involvement with, but they just buy the product, they buy the rights to it, okay, yes, you could, again, but it's North America again. And sometimes they buy global rights to movies.
Yes.
We're going down that route now. The producer or sales agent can just sell the global rights to Netflix and that's it. There's one deal instead of having to do dozens. But that's fine, but what if it's a film that Netflix or Amazon or Apple TV have financed? So they paid for it to be made. Where do you put the tariff? Where do you put the tariff on that?
Do you know, I have a sneaking suspicion this will just disappear.
I think, funnily enough, I don't think this is going to happen.
It's too complicated. Just talking it through with you, it's just like with there isn't a natural place that this can happen.
No.
John, thank you so much as ever. Filmmaker, broadcaster, and talk film reporter. I'm confused. I don't know about you. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it is Petrie with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up at midnight, I want to talk to you about this. I saw this story and I thought, yeah, this is something we can get our teeth into. It's a bit different. Gamers who carry out virtual rapes in the metaverse should be charged as real-life sex attackers. This is according to a legal expert. And when you first think of that, you think, no, that's just stupid, it's a game, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know anything. I don't know literally anything about games. My son plays games. I don't understand them. I've never been a gamer. It may surprise you to know. So I don't really understand, but I know that there can be quite a lot of violence in games, right? Grand Theft Auto. I remember years ago there being a conversation about how women were treated in Grand Theft Auto, and you know, these women who were prostitutes were, you know, referred to as whores and slapped about a bit. And you know, I remember at that time thinking, is this a game I really want my son to be playing? You know, slapping women about. So yeah, I mean, you see, the thing is that we often hear that gaming makes kids violent because they're playing violent games, right? Grand Theft Auto, for example. I don't really know any others. But, so, you know, we've said, oh, that's what makes these kids violent because they're playing these violent games. If you take that one step further, and as a character in a game, you can sexually assault another character, you can rape another character, does that make you a rapist? You know, it must do. If we're saying that violent games make kids violent, then raping virtually would make you want to be a rapist in real life. I mean, if one is true, then the other must be, or neither is true. I'm going to have to rely on you as gamers, or who have a little bit more information than I do on this. But when we look at where gaming is going, and these virtual suits now that actually you can feel a punch, or you feel, you know, it will register on your body a physical touch, and you are sexually assaulted, apart from penetration, you would feel what it was like to be sexually assaulted, wouldn't you? Be raped. So is that the same as rape? I don't know. You're going to have to really help me fill in the gaps here. I can't wait to talk to you about this. I find it absolutely fascinating. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening to you. This is Talk, and you're with Petrie, and we're just to let you know, coming up at about 1:45, we're going to be heading off to LA to chat with the gorgeous Michelle Pollino about the impact that these tariffs are having in Hollywood. So just to let you know, just following on from our first story there with John. But first, let's talk AI. And the only person I can talk to about this is Mal Fletcher, the futurist. Mal, lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm good, Petrie. How are you?
Good. I'm very well indeed, thank you. Now, AI is infecting or becoming part of almost every area of our lives. But one area that is of concern is AI in schools, setting, the lesson plans and things like that. But it's also going a little bit further, isn't it? And many people are concerned about this.
Yeah, they are. I mean, there are some great advantages. And just to give you the size of the global AI education market, Petrie, it was valued at $2.5 billion American about a month ago, and it's expected to reach $20 billion in 2028. So it's growing rapidly. And if educators get it right, it will do some important things. It will help us with personalized learning, using the data of students, their emotions, their attention levels, to give teachers a better understanding of their individual needs. In fact, the UK government recently invested £3 million in a pilot scheme that stores data about students and teaching resources. There are questions about data security with that. We can come to those in a moment if you like. But there's also skills-based learning, which is really helpful in a changing market, helping to match students' aspirations with changing demands so that we can help them get the right job for them. And I think one of the most important things it's offering us is real-time language translation and speech-to-text transcription in classes and with materials, and both can help learning for people with problems with disabilities and language barriers. We have AI tutors, live student one-to-one guidance, which one university study said can approximate to about 95% the work of a human tutor. And of course, they're available 24/7, which humans aren't. The disadvantage with AI tutors is that they might provide some emotional support, but only a human can show real empathy. And these types of systems might deny students the opportunity to develop social skills needed for human collaboration.
I mean, Mal, I'm not the only one who's listening to this or watching this has thought, cracky, the arguments about whether we could use a calculator. When we were kids, I mean, it was like you're not allowed to use a calculator. Now you've got ChatGPT, you've got all of these things, book précis. We actually had to read the whole book. There's so many resources available to children now that this is like a foreign language really to me. But with all of those great things, there are the pitfalls, and I mean, even just saying, look, asking ChatGPT to write you an original essay. I mean, my goodness, if I'd had that available to me, I don't think I'd have learned a thing.
Yeah, I think we'd all be geniuses in class and not so much
in real life, no.
There are lots of concerns. I mean, there's concerns about AI bias. AI often trains on historical data, which may be out of date by the time it's used in terms of a particular subject, or it may suffer from historical bias, for example, along racial lines. And we've talked before about AI hallucinating, which is where AI can present as fact material that's actually false or misleading or even fabricated. There are mental health issues for students. If AI is constantly monitoring the progress of students, they might feel that they're being constantly surveilled, and that can produce trauma and destroy their trust in the system. And there's also the potential for over-reliance on tech that could hinder the development of critical thinking and problem-solving skills, because students become more and more reliant, as you're suggesting. They rely on AI to complete tasks for them, and relying on it too much reduces their ability to collaborate And that's a major skill when it comes to innovation.
It is absolutely, and failing is a major lesson to learn as well, getting that, C- or whatever, because that's how you learn that you made a mistake. And certainly now, even with spell check, on things, I bet you ask a kid to spell a word they've just correctly put in an essay, they wouldn't be able to do it, because it's in repeating and getting it wrong and being told it's wrong and then getting it right, and that's how you learn it. But the other issue for me really is that critical thinking, but it's also history being changed and taught by for example, in American schools at the moment, children in certain states, the history lessons now have to include that Donald Trump was robbed of the 2020 election, which is absolutely not true, but that is a government diktat. That's what will be taught. And so you have that sort of control on information that is fed into AI, which I don't like at all.
Yeah, well, that's one of the concerns, isn't it? That in all the rush to include AI, we might forget to teach students about the points of difference between human and machine, and the importance of having humans in the loop when it comes to using machines in education. And that's interesting because one of the things we're noticing is a rising movement against the overuse of AI coming from AI's biggest market, which is Generation Z, aged between about 15 and 35. This has embraced AI faster than any other group in our country, but their relationship with it's very complex. On the one hand, they're excited. On the other, they're as concerned as you and I, and even anxious about it, in some cases angry. Something like 53% of Gen Z young adults say that AI makes them feel anxious. Part of the concern is AI-driven content that contains inaccurate information and reduces attention spans. And they're also really upset about the fact that it's so hard for them to switch off from the digital noise. I think some of that's going to lead them to push back. This is a generation that is looking to reform things. That's by nature one of its major characteristics. I think some of them will see AI as an area needing reform. And some will become what I call techno-refuseniks, who want the benefits of AI, but will only use it on a very limited basis. They don't want AI to significantly define who they are. And some might even form action groups to reform the way AI is used in education. They might fight the spread of data farms across the countryside that we're seeing now, and the growing demands of AI on the power grid. So when it comes to the goods and the bads of AI, Gen Z is definitely the generation to watch.
I mean, the other thing to consider as well, Mal, is that schools, the buildings, the actual buildings that children go to, are very expensive. So if you could get rid of schools and have children taught virtually by AI, I mean, imagine the savings that would produce for a government, but then you're not teaching children about getting up, going out, putting on a uniform, which is supposed to mimic, office clothes, meeting people, talking, socialising, and this is the future that I see, is AI driving. The biggest fear for me is that AI drives human beings apart. That we don't have any need to collect and learn about socialisation anymore.
Yeah, that's true. And one of those points of difference I mentioned is the ability to empathise.
Yeah.
We've talked about that, I think, before. But it's so important that we train not only the students, but where programs for learning active listening or empathic responding are made available to parents and teachers as well. Because we all need to remember that the one thing AI can't crack is that very human ability to empathise, because empathy requires that shared human experience, and by definition a machine can't have that. I think in the age of high tech, and this is what Gen Z is starting to realise, high touch will be even more important than it was before.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and it's all happening so quickly, isn't it? And this is the thing, we all think it's so great, and it is mostly, it's good, but if we don't figure out the human necessities in this world, we're going to lose them.
Yeah, and an over-reliance on AI, by the way, can block the development of processes like memory, or cognitive downloading, as psychologists call it. If we stop trying to learn because we can store it online or simply look it up on the phone, the brain starts to reallocate space it would normally give to short-term memory. So we become, in a sense, digitally demented.
Yeah, I completely get that. I can remember my phone number from when I was a kid, but I can't remember any phone numbers now. So, but I still have that phone number in my head.
Yeah, I'm much the same. And I think there's a growing problem with attention control too, and schools will have to address that. 49% of UK adults recently said they feel their attention span has declined in recent times through things like smartphones and social media, but AI is going to increase that by increasing the number of AI-driven algorithms that deliver us these targeted messages which trigger dopamine and feed gratification. That makes us all more likely to keep scrolling for more and reduces our ability to focus. So lots of positives, but some real negatives too.
Yeah, I mean, even on something like TikTok, you can speed it up and it's only about a minute long in the first place. I don't know. Nobody's got the attention span to sit there and watch it. Mal, I could talk to you for hours as usual. Thank you very much indeed. It's always such a joy to talk to you. Mal Fletcher, a futurist. Stay where you are. We're heading to LA next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up at the top of the hour, Cody Darla will be here to go through the papers for Wednesday. Now, though, we're heading off to LA to my gorgeous friend, Michelle Polino. And I've been told you've got to charge us double the fee now because of tariffs. Is that right?
I'm imposing a tariff.
Yeah.
On our time together.
On our time together. Listen, joking aside, gosh, I mean, LA has been through it, right? I mean, it's not good, and now Hollywood is reeling with the news that there could be these tariffs on we don't understand quite what and how it's going to work because a foreign film isn't what we think it is.
Yeah, I know why he's doing it. So let me explain a little bit of the why before we get into a couple of things that have happened in the last 24 hours or ever since Sunday when Trump announced 100% tariffs on Hollywood foreign films, anything produced in foreign lands, etc. Part of the reason that Hollywood is decimated right now, and it is that the streaming companies took over. I mean, and that's a whole other story in itself, right? So the streaming companies took over from the old Hollywood studios, and they needed content. They needed content more than anything. And so why do you think we've had an increase in foreign films at our Oscars, at the Golden Globes? Well, the Golden Globes are foreign. At the Emmys, it is basically because the streamers are buying content from foreign producers.
But also you had the SAG-AFTRA strikes, right? And so that meant that you couldn't make anything in
That's correct.
In America.
Yes, that is correct. All these things like decimated Hollywood.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these things combined have destroyed this once thriving town. Like all of my friends have left. They're in Austin or Nashville or Atlanta. Wow. They've left. And so part of this is a response to that, but it's not necessarily like, it doesn't seem like that's going to help, right? So in walks Midnight Cowboy. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Jon Voight.
Jon Voight. So Trump says, you're going to be my Hollywood guy, along with Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson. And Voight actually kind of took the bull by the horns and said, okay. And he went out and he started meeting with all of these film and television organizations, the Guild, the Writers Guild, the union, Directors Union, the studios, the streamers. And he just presented a package that seems to me a lot better than 100% tariffs. He just presented a package to President Trump. This package, the proposal includes federal tax incentives, significant changes to several tax codes, the establishment of co-production treaties, that's a nice word,
yeah,
with foreign countries, and infrastructure subsidies for theater owners and for production companies. That's a big deal. And post-production companies. All of this, as well as a focus on job training and tariffs in limited circumstances.
Yeah.
So Voight's playing the game, and he's playing it well. Much better than 100% tariffs.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Voight went to Trump because we all know why films are made in foreign countries. I mean, there are issues of talent, and there are, there's some great post-production in some places, great special effects in others, whatever. But on the whole, it is because of the cost of filmmaking. And of course, that's why it's 10 minutes before the film starts, because you've got 12 co-production companies as well that might be, Polish or Italian or British or all of them, to spread the costs. So we were trying to figure out where this 100% tariff would go. What constitutes a non-American movie? I mean, what percentage has to be, a Polish company or this is what we didn't quite understand from this blanket 100%.
And you're absolutely correct. and I think, and we're all kind of learning. This is all a learning curve here. Like Trump kind of proposes the exact opposite, or something so extreme, and then in walks our Midnight Cowboy. And I don't even know if they're working in tandem or what, but what he proposed, what Jon Voight proposed,
it seems sensible.
It's completely sensible. It's the right way, and I hope Trump kind of, backtracks a bit. But it seems to be how Trump does business. He says, "Well, we're going to do this," and then it was just like the prime minister today. That meeting was hilarious. And, you know, he's like, oh, we're going to, you know, we want you as a 51st state. And it's like, well, we're not for sale, Mr. President. And, you know, and it's like, oh, okay, well, let's just have a friendship. It's like wild to watch.
It is wild. It is wild.
We're trying to figure it out as well as you guys. Like, I don't know. Like,
stop asking me questions. I don't know anyway. But how is Hollywood responded to this? Some of the comments that I've seen, they're extremely worried. Our film industry is really worried. It accounts for nearly 200,000 people who are now really worried.
Yeah, there's a lot of people worried. Among them, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
Who responded with a note of let's work together. He basically said, I want to work with President Trump. Here's what we need, a $7.5 billion.
Trump hates Newsom, though.
I mean, yeah, I know. Well, he apparently said, you know, yeah, we got along before, you know. So, again, I don't know. I don't think the tariffs are going to come on. I think it's going to be more a mix of what John Voight said or proposed, because that to me makes sense. And if he's the common sense guy, come on. Like,
and it's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, when he accuses other countries of stealing American movie making, it just makes us all want to. Well, I won't tell you.
I'm sure your heads want to pop off.
I mean, honestly, it's like grow up. Nobody's. Yeah. People are entitled to build their own industries. But also, when he said this is a concerted effort by other nations to steal our industry and therefore a national security threat.
Yeah. So
what's wrong with him?
Yeah. So, you know, they weren't stealing it.
No.
Our greedy streaming companies were selling us away. That's really what this is about. And that's what I wish he would address instead of getting everybody mad at us by saying something like that.
Yeah.
It was really the heads of our greedy streaming companies.
We're not mad at women. We're not mad at you, just him. Don't worry.
I understand. I understand completely.
And the people he surrounds himself with. But look, it's going to be really interesting. I'm with you on this, Michelle, as I often am with these things. I don't think this is going to happen unless it's, you know, very few cases. But it's something like only 1 or 2% of foreign films anyway that come into America. So it's not really going to make that much of a difference. We'll wait and see. But I think he'll go back on this.
I do.
Let's quickly talk about Diddy. Diddy's trial. And now I was reading a bit about this earlier, and he's saying that video of him abusing his girlfriend in a hotel was fake, was doctored.
Yes, he's saying they just use the clips out of context, and I'm just like, how? That's what I mean. Like, I pretty much saw you slam her down on the hotel room floor or hallway floor right before the elevator and hit her and kick her.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how, like, I really don't. Mark Geragos, his lawyer, I don't understand the attorney's defense here. Doesn't make any sense to me. We've all seen the tape, you know, cut to the tape.
Yeah. Unless they ran it backwards and he was helping her up.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And his boot was coming away from her. I don't.
Right.
Listen, it is. Look, Diddy's right in it. But one thing I was interested in is Mike Myers has been told to be on standby to be a witness.
Yeah.
Because of a fake tattoo that he had on his buttocks. This is right. Where the character of Dr. Evil had an E. Diddy tattoo. What's that?
Yeah, there's, wait for it, 190 celebrities are on standby right now because of their interactions. Something as simple as a tattoo for a film.
Weird.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think what they're saying here is everybody knew about his sex parties.
Yeah.
They were even making fun of it in films. So, yeah, I think that's what that's all about. Seems to make sense to me.
I tell you what, we don't need movies anymore. We just watch America. That's all we need for all of our entertainment right now.
So much. Thanks, England. Really appreciate you guys so much.
And the popcorn we're getting through is extraordinary. Michelle, it's always lovely to see you. Lots of love to you. Thank you very much indeed, Michelle Polino there. Stay where you are. Papers next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good to have your company. It is Petrie here with you, and with me, I'm thrilled to say, is Cody Darla, who is a podcaster, TikToker, is that the right word?
TikToker.
I guess so, and a writer, a comedy writer as well. I'm so pleased to see you. We're just talking because in your TikTok videos, which I watch religiously every day, and I like them every time as well.
Of course, that's the main thing.
That's the main thing. I was saying, because you told me you lived in Walthamstow, in that area, and then you're in this gorgeous sort of. I thought, well, he's lying. He's got a country
my
pad.
country estate.
Yes, your estate.
Yeah.
You're really a Tory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm one of those rural
Snobby
Tories.
Tory.
Yeah.
But parts of London do look like that. So.
Yeah, there are some nice bits, believe it or not. Yeah.
Like me, Shepherd's Bush, a couple of council estates. Nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
I like it.
Yeah,
urban. Cody, just before we get on to the papers, I want to ask you about this. Are you a gamer?
No. No.
Useless.
Why? What's the...
The question is, gamers who carry out virtual rapes in the metaverse should be charged as real-life sex attackers, according to legal experts.
Yes, I think so. That sounds about right to me. Yeah.
Do you think they should?
Well, it's this kind of a similar kind of debate that I've come across is about kind of like it's like AI generated image of like child pornography and things like that.
is like ultimately they're things that are drawn from real images.
Right.
So this kind of blurs the line between, like, it might be in the digital realm, but ultimately it's impacting real life people. And I think that kind of thing, if you're playing out a fantasy in a digital space, it's a bit like the old argument around, you know, should an 8-year-old play like Call of Duty?
Yeah.
Like, it kind of encourages certain patterns of behaviour that ultimately could heighten the risk of someone actually doing something like that in real life.
Isn't it a bit like a sort of almost a pre-crime? Because what we're saying is that if you are the kind of sicko who would, in a digital form, rape another digital form, there's something fundamentally wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
And therefore you could then become a rapist in the real world, but you might not. And so are we talking about a pre-crime here, or is the act in itself criminal?
It is the debate around, like, would those people be arrested and imprisoned in with the same sentence
and be charged as real life sex attackers? So the same charge. Not that there's much danger of any of them going to jail, frankly, but you know, if they would be, it would be considered the same.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like you say, actually, if you're into even deeper water, if you're like, when you see the percentages of rape cases that actually result in imprisonment, I mean, you could, if you have some kind of digital monitoring, you might end up with a situation where there are more digital rapists in prison than real rapists.
But I mean, I was talking to Sam the other day, who's the technical person over there, keeps threatening to cut my microphone if I'm rude. And you know, I was saying, I can't, you know, he's gamer. I said, I can't imagine a really good guy like you your character ever wanting to do that to another character. And we agreed that was preposterous, right? Because he's a good bloke. So what am I then saying? Am I saying there that then potential rapists are in these games raping, and that means that they would do it in real life? Do you see what I'm saying? If I can say that there are plenty of people I know, my son is a gamer, he would never, it wouldn't even be in his consciousness, it wouldn't be something he would think of, and raping in either the real world or in a fake world. But if you are prepared to rape in the fake world or in the online world, does that mean you're more likely to rape because your mind thinks like that? Yeah,
I think it must do on some level. I think
it must
I'm not
right?
a psychologist, but I mean, yeah, if someone's willing to do that, to think that way and to be motivated to do certain actions, I think you can be confident at least that they're more likely to do those actions than someone who...
And maybe if they practice online, if you like, then they will know what kind of rapist they might be in the real world. I think this is where I get confused, because I don't game. I have no knowledge of this particular world or worlds at all. So I don't know how suspended disbelief is, right? Because you've got games where you go and kill zombies, right? Does that make you a murderer?
No, because they're already dead. They're zombies.
Yeah, or a potential zombie killer. I don't know. But if you are in Grand Theft Auto, for example, and you steal a car, does that teach you to go and steal a car? And should that be a crime?
Yeah,
if rape is a crime.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's a tricky. I guess it's a. Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's kind of behavioural, isn't
reality,
it? It becomes a likelihood question.
Yeah. But also, Cody, you know, when there are young kids that kill, like the Jamie Bolger case, I remember even in those days it was said, oh, they were 9 and 10, I think, at the time. They learnt this violence from online games. That was it. I remember that being a real narrative around the case, saying that the kids who play violent games become violent in the real world. Right? So if that's true, then is rape true?
Yeah,
one can't be true without the other being true.
Yeah, I mean, I think online gaming is one of those topics that is often used as a kind of I wouldn't go. Yeah, it's not as strong to say a scapegoat, but actually, ultimately, what we're getting at is male attitudes towards women,
yes,
which is something that should be dealt with,
and is dangerous.
Yeah. So what we're seeing is a digital expression of that, and I guess with all of the other statistics we've alluded to, rape cases hardly ever getting convicted. I think there's a societal systemic problem with male attitudes towards women and misogyny, and especially that amongst young men who I imagine predominantly make up gaming communities.
It's really interesting that you point to that particular group because these misogynistic extremists known as incels are set to weaponise the metaverse for virtual rape. This is according to professors and other people. But the thing that concerns me, I think, is we are where we are now, but in the very near future, and in fact it is around now, let me read this to you. Due to tactile technology, you can now have physical sensations. So if somebody touches your avatar, you feel it. Right? Victims report the same level of trauma as if the rape had occurred in real life. So this is available now. I don't know how widely, but it's weird anyway. So you're in a virtual game and somebody touches you and you feel that touch. So it's hard to imagine that if you were sexually assaulted in the game and you felt that would be any different to being in the real world. Right?
Yeah, it's quite dystopian, isn't it?
And this is just going to get more and more, this kind of tactility and ability to feel everything.
Yeah, I think, like I say, I can see why. Like, I can see the strong argument for treating it as a criminal act, as if it had been taking place in the real world, because again, these are all gradations of you're making something digital more real, and I think you're blurring the line between what's reality and what's not. And ultimately, all you're going to encourage is this kind of situation where there actually isn't much difference. Yeah. Therefore, people who partake in that kind of activity online will seem and feel no difference to doing it in real life.
In real life, yeah. They just become sort of used to it, don't they?
Yeah, but it's the same. People, I guess, not to go off on a complete tangent, but this is what a lot of people say about the riots last summer, being like, oh, well, they only posted it on Facebook. Yeah. But I think words have consequences, actions have consequences. Yeah. With everyone spending a huge percentage of their life online, I think is a bit naive to kind of see it as a completely separate space to the real physical world.
But increasingly, people have been doing that. And when people always question me about freedom of speech, of course, as a journalist, I'm a huge proponent of freedom of speech. But the freedom of speech does not negate. It doesn't give you freedom of responsibility, and the freedom of consequence. And those people who were texting and tweeting and saying dreadful things, inciting violence, thought that freedom of speech meant freedom of consequence. You're free to say it, but there are consequences if you do. And I think that the things like this, though, but I think because I don't really understand, I quite like the real world.
Yeah.
I've never played these games, so I don't understand how far human beings go into that fantasy world and how much
I think it's quite far.
Yeah.
I think it's quite far. I mean, I think, like you say, incel culture, a lot of that is built from gaming. And really unpleasant things have happened in real life.
Because
school shootings and things like that. Because they have their origins in the digital space.
Well, and also they're bolstered, aren't they? They're bolstered to believe. It's the same with paedophilia. There's always been the number of paedophiles that are around, but they're able to form gangs now and behave in more aggressive ways because they are emboldened. They've been told that what they feel and what they think is normal by other people who feel and think the same thing, and so that's what creates a danger, and that's certainly what's creating the danger with incels, because they're being told that they're right.
Yeah, and also it's the connectivity thing. Yeah. You're like, you might, without the internet, someone of a similar mindset, there might not be one for hundreds of miles.
Exactly.
Now suddenly every single one in the world can be connected to each other.
Yeah.
And this is how we have extremism of all kinds.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, that is the point. But there are games now that introduce safe zones that avatars can go to avoid interaction. It's weird to me that a drawing basically needs a safe zone.
It's sad. I think again it sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier about it's really about human attitudes towards each other.
Yeah.
And particularly in this story, I think it's mainly male attitudes towards women, attitudes towards other people as well. Like that's why it's a problem.
Yeah.
If those societal views weren't present, then we wouldn't find fictional characters raping each other in a digital space. And that's again an argument for saying that the two realms aren't separate at all.
They're not, no.
one and the same.
Yeah. And for some people, the virtual world will probably be more hours than the real world.
Yeah.
It's very strange to me. I wish I understood it more. So I need people to help with that. Let's have a look at the papers. The Wall Street Journal. Fashion spends a gala night at the museum. Are you a big fan of the Met Gala?
Yeah, I always every year. I always open the BBC article with the top 25 maddest outfits.
Yeah, of course you do.
And that is my only exposure to the Met Gala.
Yeah,
and there were some mad outfits.
They're really well,
didn't
as
disappoint.
usual. But the theme was superfine tailoring, black style, which I don't know what I mean, but most were wearing, some were wearing absolutely gorgeous suits, just a plain suit. Other people had bits of suit cut into, and I think Demi Moore went dressed as a tie.
Yes, she did. Yeah.
Yeah.
A literal reading.
A
of the dress
literal
code.
reading of the thing. I think you have to be invited to the Met Gala.
Oh, I don't think they'll have gate crashers. No,
but I think it's
invite
only by invite. Yeah, you can't. Even if you're a bizgillionaire, you can't just pay for a ticket.
Well, there was. I remember the crypto king, he's now in prison.
Oh,
he was asked to host the Met Gala. He was invited to host the Met Gala a few years ago before he got busted. So yeah, you're right. I think that, but you can be a gazillionaire and be invited if they think you fit with the vibe.
Yeah, but I don't know whether it's ever anything that I would want to go to.
You've never been invited?
Of course I've been. Yeah. Cody, I mean, come on. I've been invited, obviously.
Of course. You've still got your tie dress.
I've still got my tie dress, but I just couldn't be bothered. So what can you do?
What can you do?
It's a long way.
Yeah.
It's a long way to go. Let's have a look at other stories on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Trump threatens colleges if student loans are not repaid. The Trump administration's latest threat to colleges and universities: get your former students to pay back their loans or future students might not get any. He's got a real thing about these student debts, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah, it goes on to say in the article that obviously a lot more students are defaulting since COVID, since the pandemic, and they haven't resumed payments.
Yeah.
So a lot of students in America are now at least 9 months behind. But I don't know how denying it to future students will allow colleges to recoup the payments from...
No. But also, I've been reading into these student debts because they've been really hammering on about this. But the biggest problem seems to be that students, when they've taken out their loan at one interest rate, let's say 6%, which is outrageous anyway, then find a couple of years later that interest rate has gone up to 15%, and then a couple of years later find out. So whatever they agreed to when they took out the loan, they can never catch up to it because the debt just keeps going up and up and up because interest rates keep going up. I think that, you know, if you've taken out a loan, yes, you should repay it, but only if it's fair.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, it's what, 9%?
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it is, because actually you can't shop around. You can only get this loan from one place. You can't. You don't go to a bank and get a loan. This is a very specific loan supplied by one specific person, which makes it, in my opinion, wrong.
I never understand why there's even, if it's coming from the government, why there's even interest on it.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't. It's you're using a public service, or not public service, but
Yeah.
I get it. I
There
get it why
shouldn't
there
be
should be a
interest.
loan.
Pay it back by all means,
Yeah.
although all the people setting these never paid a penny for their degrees, but they think it's all right for other students to
But also,
pay.
I don't think anyone's paying a penny now. They're just paying the interest.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I know anyone who's actually paying their loan.
Yeah.
They're
You're
just paying
young.
the
Have you
interest.
finished paying yours?
No, absolutely not. No, it's like record amount. Don't make me think about it. I won't
Really?
sleep. No, it just goes. I think I've logged into it maybe 3 years ago, and immediately logged out and have never checked since.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge. It's
It,
massive.
Does it worry you? I'm just going to clip that. Just gonna clip that.
Does it worry me? Not really. I mean, it's not. I just see it. It's basically an extra tax. It's
Yeah.
just a tax for going to university,
Yeah.
which is fine, I guess. I mean, it should be free, really, shouldn't it?
Well, like I said, the people who are setting these things all benefited from a free education at university.
To be honest, Petrie, I can't. Of all the things in the world, my student loan isn't top of the worry list.
I know, but I know you're young, but you're still, what, roughly 50? No, I don't know that. But, I mean...
I think it's roughly 50 grand.
Yeah.
That's my debt. Yeah, probably more, actually.
That is terrifying. So, yeah, tariff plot twist panics Hollywood. That's easy for someone to say. We've been talking about this all through the programme as well. Production companies are really worried. Hollywood is broken and not going to get fixed by a stupid tariff, and nobody understands what constitutes an American film.
Yeah, it's IP, isn't it? IP that doesn't necessarily have any monetary value. How do you tariff that?
How do you tariff it? It just seems to be bonkers.
It's another well thought through policy.
No, what a shocker.
Yeah.
China's official statistics are disappointing. Missing data makes it harder to know what's going on in the country. Well, it's China.
Yeah, it's saying in the article that because of their economic downturn, because of the tariffs, the Chinese government is wanting to control the narrative around their economy.
What a shocker.
Yeah. Also, yeah, very strange.
Also, they've never done that.
Yeah, no.
Except every day since they've existed in 5,000 years. But they're still adamant that they are not calling America, and apparently Trump is calling them every day, trying to get some kind of deal, because he can't be seen to back down on it. But of course he's saying that they're calling him, and they're going, no, we're not. Oh, no, we're not.
Oh, no, not at all.
And have you seen a lot of the memes and stuff that China have been kicking out about?
The AI-generated Donald Trumps in factories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, very good.
Absolutely. And all
Meme
of those
warfare.
and all the adverts for eyeliner using JD Vance.
It's probably the surefire way of getting under their skin.
Yeah, it's the only way, I think. Right, let's take a break, and we'll come back in a moment and have a look at the UK papers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here, and with me is Cody Darler, comedy writer and podcaster. Look him up on TikTok, it's very good. Now, Financial Times. This is a really interesting photograph here. Mark Carney, who is now the Prime Minister of Canada. He won the election. The Liberals won, which was never on the cards. They weren't supposed to win at all. It was supposed to be the Conservative Party, but nope, because of Trump. Trump won it for him.
The Liberal hero.
The Liberal hero,
yeah, exactly.
who won. The Liberals, after 10 years, they were deeply unpopular and on their way out. But no, Carney is in. It wasn't a landslide victory. In fact, he had to form a government to do it. But he is nonetheless in charge and the right man for the job. He had his first meeting with Trump today and was apparently very firm with Trump about being the 51st state.
Yeah, he said Canada will never be for sale. Yeah. And then Trump said, never say never.
Oh, he's
very Trumpian.
Yeah, does he not connect with the idea that actually Mark Carney is just like way more intelligent and also it's never going to happen. I mean, this is the thing. I don't understand.
I don't think Donald...
And that he won the election for Mark Carney on the basis that they didn't want America.
Yeah, I don't think Donald makes any connections.
Yeah.
Certainly not one based around someone being more intelligent than him.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Mark Carney has said, look, this is the first of many meetings. We're not friends yet. We're not going to...
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange one, isn't it? It's like, yeah, it's always quite strange when you see two figures individually, really going hammer and tong over how awful each other is.
Yeah, and then you see them together.
And then you see them together, and then you start reading the article about it, and it's like Mark Carney was like Donald Trump's a tremendous president, or something like that. I mean, I get it. It's kind of, and in a way, it's quite nice because when Keir Starmer went and blew smoke up Donald's arse a few months ago, it was all kind of cringe, but it's quite nice to see Mark Carney doing the same. It's everyone, isn't it? It's not just Keir.
But why kowtow to such a fool?
Well, they just have control of the world economy, don't they? This is, I think we talked about this last time. It's a wake-up call for the world to not rely on America, but it's just we're so intertwined with globalization that we can't do it just yet. But we should turn our back on a lot of them.
I agree. Let's just be complete little islanders.
Exactly. Let's just all agree to kind of go back to like clay pots and sort of beans for I don't know 15 years.
Yeah,
and
that'd
then
be good.
At that point,
no
we
telly,
should be
no
all right.
Yeah, we should be all right. We should be fine. We'll get over it. God, I don't know what's going on. Merz finally has secured German chancellorship. But voting exposes the coalition's fragility. This is Friedrich Merz, he seems like he's going to be a really strong chancellor. But again, it was a vote which wasn't 100, wasn't overwhelming. So he had to bring in another party to help him form a government. And the first vote this morning, he lost. He didn't get voted in.
Real flex.
From
his coalition partners.
Yeah. But now he is going to be the Chancellor. He's going to be one to watch, I think. Merz is going to be really interesting.
He talks tough on Trump, doesn't he? He's big into increasing German military spending. Yeah. He's washed his hands of the Americans after their
interference.
NATO interference, yeah. I think, he certainly seems to be the most outspoken European leader around just turning back on the Americans.
He's and calling for everybody else to do the same. Very interesting. US trade pact. What's so interesting, I think, about the British papers at the moment is it's almost all American news. US trade pact draws near after accord on lower levy quotas for cars and steel. A deal to be signed this week. Bid to ease liberation tariffs. That's Liberation Day. I mean, I'm so confused with all of this now. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think a US trade deal is going to make that much of a difference anyway. It's only a certain part of the economy anyway. It's not a grand trade deal. And the US companies already own a huge proportion of the British economy.
I know. I mean, why do we suck up to him so much?
I think it's about a third of all American overseas investment is in the UK. And you've only got to walk down the supermarket aisle and look at every single item on the shelves, and you'll realise that its origin is in an American company.
Do you know what? I check now before I buy anything.
You must not be able to buy anything, surely.
Well, no, I know. Just things like even shampoo and things like that. You've got to look and see what the original company. But I will always go with a Dutch company or with a British company.
Yeah.
So, because I'm not really wedded to any particular brand, so it doesn't really bother me. But I will check to see where products originate from and try not to buy them.
Well, it's interesting because again, there's a good book about called Vassal State, which is again a narrow economic argument for basically saying that the Americans own the UK economy. But today, a story around Deliveroo being bought by DoorDash, that British companies have a problem with scale. They get to a certain scale and then we sell to the Americans.
Yeah.
Big American companies like Uber and Amazon, their first 15 years, they don't care about profit. They just want monopoly. So what they do is they offer free services, cheap services, undercut. And then eventually they get to a point where they have complete monopoly. So now Deliveroo...
Which is exactly what Uber did with all the little local cab companies.
Yeah.
And now I think that there's not much difference between an Uber and a black cab in London now.
No, not at all. And also...
I don't, no offence to black cab, I mean in terms of cost, and I'll always go with a black cab.
Yeah. It's kind of mad as well. Uber drivers don't know how much they're getting paid per fare.
No, it doesn't seem to be right, does it, for them either?
No, I don't think it works for really anyone.
For anybody. Yeah, it really is, but it's a shame. I did not know that Melania Trump has got her own cryptocurrency, as well as Donald Trump.
This is a crazy story. So, there was so Melania coin, again a meme coin, about I think it says a few minutes before Donald officially became president, an individual buyer spent $681,000 buying the coin. And 64 seconds later, they sold the coin for $39 million. Which, again, if you need any other evidence to suggest
of corruption,
yeah, I mean, this is surely insider trading as well.
This is definitely.
It's that the administration exists purely for billionaires. That a $681,000 investment turned into $39 million in 64 seconds. There's something wrong with our economic system.
That is bad.
And it's everything.
Is so bad. But also, you've got Donald Trump doing a coin, Melania doing a coin, selling cars outside the front of the White House.
Yeah.
All of these other bits of, selling tickets to have dinner with him at, £5 million in Mar-a-Lago, dollars, sorry. I mean, I don't know how it's allowed. I mean, it really shouldn't be, should it?
No, he's a law unto himself.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Mind you, that other Muskrat's gone quiet, hasn't he?
Yeah, Muskrat's out, isn't he?
Yeah.
Isn't he out now? He's down and out.
Donald wasn't very nice about him the other day either, apparently. But, yeah, he's gone to try and fix Tesla.
Yeah, stocks are down 74%.
Yeah, and a lot of countries are not buying them at all now. Sweden bought 203 Teslas in the whole country.
Really?
First quarter.
It's not. Sometimes there's a good news story.
Sometimes people get what they deserve. Let's take a break. Back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, and you're with Petrie, and it's time now to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning a weekend away in Munich at the end of May to watch the biggest game in European football, the Champions League final. We're also putting $5,000 in your pocket to spend however you want.
Win a once-in-a-lifetime trip to watch the Champions League final live. Go to talksport.com/win for your chance to embark on the ultimate odyssey of football ecstasy. With 2 tickets to the Champions League final live at the iconic Munich Football Arena, Germany, including flights, accommodation, and an uber-massive $5,000 in your hand. How about that? Enter online now at talksport.com/win. Terms and conditions apply. Achtung, baby.
18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win that VIP trip, simply text the word football to 83338 by the 16th of May, 11 p.m. A text will cost you £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have bill payer's permission. Or you can just send your name and number by post to Champions League Final Comp, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP. It must arrive by 5 p.m. on May the 21st.
Don't miss out on this incredible giveaway from our colleagues at Talk Sport. Munich and $5,000. That's nothing to be sniffed at. With me in the studio to go through Wednesday's papers is Cody Dada, comedy writer and podcaster. And did you mess up your papers?
Yeah,
basically that's what you did. Right. Okay. So I've got Metro next. Superbike girlfriend tragedy number 2. A girlfriend of a motorcycle racer killed with a rival in a horrifying 11-bike pile-up. Yes, I saw this. These 2 young guys. It's really sad.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean...
I think it's not common, but it's a dangerous sport.
It is a dangerous sport.
Yeah.
And
it's like F1.
I
fast
think
cars,
if
bits
you're
of
going to do
metal.
that, exactly that. The Daily Express, reverse fuel pay cut for all OPs now. Labour turmoil over cuts. I keep hearing them say, we are going to do it, we're not going to do it, we are going to do it, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, the damage has been done, I think, in terms of voters. I mean, not to be overly controversial, but the people most affected by this overwhelmingly voted for Brexit. And I'm not saying in an ideal world they should get their winter fuel allowance, but I think this is just chickens coming home to roost.
Consequences.
Consequences of political actions. And I think young people have been hit incredibly hard by Brexit. And I'm not saying it's about time that the solid Brexit voting cohort in the country actually experience some consequence of their actions, but I think this is basically what it is. Brexit wiped 5% off the GDP of the country, which is £32 billion a year. The government has a £20 billion black hole. It's kind of mad to think that the two aren't connected. And like I say, I do feel sorry for pensioners who don't get their winter fuel allowance, but there are also a lot of pensioners who don't need it. My great aunt, not to throw her under the bus, but she complained about not getting the winter fuel allowance so much in the same week that she bought a new 4-wheel drive. And I know that that's not the case for everyone, and that there is a limit, and there will be unfortunate people who are a pound over, so that they're then not entitled to it. And I do really feel sorry for those people. But there's a lot of entitlement, I feel, towards this
But what's
payment.
interesting, though, is that the fact that there are those pensioners that were a pound up over are now applying for benefits, that almost that 20 billion that they've managed to save, or that money that it wasn't that much, was it? It was 900 million, actually. But they've lost in now benefit payments.
Totally. I mean, it is ultimately
It
ridiculous.
was a political decision.
Yes, and it's
a
not saved
financial
that
one.
much money, and the government have now spent a load of money on trying to raise a public campaign to get people who are entitled to it to sign up. So if they U-turned, it would cost them millions of pounds because they've already spent the money. Ultimately, it's a stupid policy they shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
They did it within days of winning a massive landslide. We still live in a country where billionaires don't pay any tax. And as long as that exists, this sort of thing shouldn't happen.
I absolutely agree with you.
But that's the one thing I've not heard people talk about, is the fact that most of the people affected by this voted for Brexit. And this is one of the consequences. This is what happens if you tank your own economy. You have to make sacrifices. This shouldn't be one of them, but unfortunately the country's got no money. We're all knackered.
Yeah, and also those people were lied to during the Brexit campaign,
course.
and in fact it was proved in a court that they were lied to. And if the Brexit vote had been anything other than an advisory, it would have been overturned.
Well, it's nice to see the man responsible for
It's going to be
telling
Prime
all
Minister.
those lies, being the next Prime Minister. There's a lot of consequences for him.
There is. Now, have you seen these images of the poppies outside the Tower of London? These beautiful...
Yeah, amazing.
And I really hope, because last time they did this, it was 10 years ago. I can't believe it was 10 years ago. It was beautiful. They sold the poppies, and I didn't buy any. They were £25 each, and I really hope they sell, because they sold them for charity. So I really hope they sell them again, because they are absolutely stunning, these poppies. And the art installation is, if you're in London, please do go and see that. Labour. What do women prefer, a six-pack or a full head of hair? Which have you got?
Neither, unfortunately. Neither.
Oh, there you go. That's a bit rough then, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm bottom of the pile.
I don't quite know where to go with that.
Yeah, this article does nothing for me.
Does nothing for you, neither one of them. All right. Labour's tax break for Indian workers. Tories blast Starmer's Delhi trade deal that will make it cheaper to employ foreign staff.
Yeah, the caveat here being that it's really targeting inter-company employees. So they're people who already work for Indian companies that would... It's a sort of exchange, I guess.
Yeah.
If they could work in the UK and not pay national insurance, and British people who work for the same companies can go to India and not pay national insurance there, or whatever the equivalent is. There's agreements that the UK already has with 17 other countries in exactly the same way, like South Korea.
Oh,
it's
right.
pretty standard.
It's pretty standard. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's not really a big deal. But again, the figure is that it will add £5 billion to the UK economy by 2040. And a reminder that
that doesn't seem very
pre-Brexit,
much, does
we
it?
just had £32 billion trade. We've lost 32
Yeah, and
billion
this is the
a
biggest
year.
deal we've done since Brexit.
Yes. So what, 9 years on?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was worth the wait.
It is small potatoes, isn't it? The Telegraph, again, looking at the poppies, and we've got the Queen there, Queen Camilla, who's appears to be signing a book. I don't think she's selling a book. I think it's a guest book or something. The Telegraph also pointing to the two-tier tax deal for Indian migrants. And what else? Oh, we start the conclave tomorrow. Oh, today. Today.
Yes.
Tuesday. Wednesday.
All those smoking cardinals.
Yeah. They're going to be locked away. No mobile phones. No TikTok.
No TikTok, imagine that.
Imagine that.
I reckon I'm going to experience a massive drop-off in my viewers.
I think you are.
I'm a real hit amongst the
You are amongst the
bishops
cardinals.
and cardinals.
Yeah, they love you.
Apparently they have walkie-talkies.
Yes, they're allowed
Within the
walkie-talkies
conclave.
because they've got to get the message out, haven't they, what the votes are.
Oh, they walkie-talkie the message.
I think
They
so.
tell the Pope.
Yeah.
Or they deliver the news of the new Pope via walkie-talkie.
I think it's about communicating with the outside, I think. I don't think
It's not picked
they're
up by baby
playing
monitors.
a game where they're hiding behind a going, Roger, Roger.
They don't see each other for the duration of the conclave. They're just, they're walkie-talkieing.
They're just pretending to be spies and playing.
Rafe Fiennes just walking around looking moody.
Yeah, playing Tom Hanks and running around. So I think they do that. But they think it's going to be very quick, that we should have a new Pope by... I remember one time, though, it did take over a week.
Is there a favourite? Is there a front runner?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, of course. Yeah, of course. Well, he already is Pope, according to him.
He already is
though.
Pope, yeah. But, I mean, he was also saying that he thought that the Catholics thought that was hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah, and that he didn't post that picture where it's got DJ Trump.
Even though it's from his official account and the White House account.
Yeah.
Which begs the question, who created it? If it wasn't Trump, who created it? I believe it wasn't him. I don't think he...
But Melania said she thought he looked cute as the Pope.
Of course. Well, he also posted another one about May the 4th and he had a massive six-pack, which the Mail would probably do well to write an article about.
Yeah.
Because Donald Trump has no hair, but he does have a six-pack.
But
in
he
the AI
does.
picture.
Well, he has a six-pack on his arms.
Yes,
according to
six-pack
that
on his
AI.
arms, yeah.
extraordinary image. But that is the body type that his health report said he had.
Yeah, that's
Chris
a real
Hemsworth.
picture.
Yeah, that is a real picture. And the Houthis apparently agreed to stop the bombs. That is, again, according to Donald Trump. But we'll wait and see where the truth lies, maybe. That's the Telegraph. The Eye also talking about a historic UK trade deal with India faces backlash over tax break for migrant workers. And Casting Ouch. Film and TV's worst starring role mishaps. Oh, I want to read that. That looks good.
Tom
and
Cruise,
Kate
front and
Lister.
centre.
Yeah, Kate Lister saying, "I'm hated by people who've never met me." Welcome to the club.
Yeah, that's just modern society,
That's
isn't
just
it?
modern society. I think that is true of most of us, isn't it?
I walk around hating absolutely everyone. I've never met them.
Never met them.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan.
This is standard experience.
Standard.
This is 21st century living.
Yeah. Do you don't get any hate though on your
I do.
Mr. Cody Darla?
I'm surprised by the level of hate I get. I don't get as much as I expect, and I think a lot of that. I think that's also partly to do with the fact that I'm a guy. I think women in comedy get a lot more hate. It gets a lot more personal because most of my content is political. I'll just get kind of Reform UK bot
and then get accused of having Donald Trump syndrome.
Yeah, it's all quite harmless. Someone. I did a series where I was a right winger. This was over Christmas. It was like right winger at Christmas, and people accused me of having high levels of estrogen, which was kind of weirdly specific.
Weirdly specific.
Yeah, and I guess pointing to my lack of six pack and lack of hair as proof that I was clearly filled with estrogen. But beyond that, I don't get as much hate as I probably should, to be honest.
I am surprised because you do take the mick out of Musk and Trump. And
I guess it's maybe
I love you being
you're
Trump's advisor at the moment, aren't you?
Yes, the advisor, yeah. It's maybe a product of an echo chamber. I think it's a kind of... I get, people that are broadly in that space who don't like Trump. Although, I mean, it's quite common not to find people who hate Trump. Everyone kind of hates Trump, don't they? Sort of. Apart from MAGA, but they're not really human beings. They're a different breed.
It is interesting that you sometimes see the bots, and I can, not on your stuff, but on other stuff that comes onto my page, and there's definitely a bot that's saying, I hope that I'm going to vote for Donald Trump in 2037 or whatever it is.
It's like user 237i @ Kremlin. I think that's a bot.
I think that might not be a real person. Quick break, and Cody and I'll be back in a second.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, and this is Petrie, and with me is Cody Darla, who is a comedy writer and podcaster, and Mr. Cody Darla on TikTok. You please look him up, he's very funny. The Daily Star. I've been a bit worried about the Star recently because it hasn't been as funny as it usually is. And then for 2 weeks, whoever it was that was on holiday was back and doing silly front pages, and now we're back to news. Sort of. Ryan Reynolds says he is so in love with footy that he's become addicted to Wrexham. So there you go. I mean, he has turned this team around. There's no doubt about it. He's brought some glitter and shine to it.
I mean, he owns Wrexham. This headline is "Man who owns Wrexham enjoys watching them play football." Which
That's
you would hope is the bare minimum.
That's the story.
Also, it's maybe less impactful in a nation like the UK, where
that
everyone
loves
is kind
football.
of also
Do you love
is addicted to football. I hate football.
Oh, do you?
Well, I don't hate it, but I don't watch football.
Do you know what? That's that estrogen again.
Exactly. That's my bald head, my big bald estrogen head.
Flabby
not
estrogen head.
Bald flabby hips and my estrogen head, not making me enjoy football.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Wagatha. So the whole Wagatha trial, she's got to now pay Rooney £1.4 million in damages. Vardy has.
Yeah.
I mean,
the Daily Star's a different beast, isn't it, really?
It's not. I'm telling you, they've got to stop doing this. I'm not happy with it.
But you can get a family pass to the National Trust as well.
Good. Excellent stuff. Let's have a look at the Sun. Good heavens. Maddie, the unseen evidence. But do you know what? There are so many children that go missing every single year and every single week, every single day. And we're still hung up about one little white blonde girl.
Yeah.
And millions, and disproportionately millions and millions have been spent, and it's a tragedy that she was taken. It is awful. Wouldn't wish it on anybody, but we have to remember that there are other children that go missing who do not get that sort of attention. That's what I always think when I see this.
Absolutely.
Anyway, this is the German guy, Bruckner, wrote a vile child kidnap fantasy. Most of the world believes it was him, but he has not yet been found guilty of it, has he?
Yeah, he was in prison for other charges,
child abductions, yeah.
But he hasn't admitted to it.
But I don't know. It's enough.
Yeah.
I think enough now. Here we go. Let's go to the Mirror. The Mirror. Eco-royalty. The King hears Sir David's most important story. 99 years old, David Attenborough. He has said that he's lived for nearly 100 years, and he's realised that the most important part of this planet is the oceans. We can't lose Attenborough, can we? I mean, he's going to go.
I hate to break it to you.
I know.
I think we might have to at some point.
But it's just, 99 years old. I mean, he has just been part of all of our lives, right?
Yeah. Maybe he's. I mean, he talks about the oceans kind of recovering and growing back.
Yeah.
Maybe he's sort of like a barnacle. He's gonna grow back with it.
Maybe. And there he is with a much younger King Charles.
I know. That is a surprise,
weird,
isn't it? Yeah, it is weird.
76th, the King, I think. And you see them together. He was more of a cohort of the Queen's, wasn't he, Attenborough?
Yeah. Well, there was a thing for VE Day where Attenborough, I think it was recorded a few years ago, but him saying he celebrated his 19th birthday on the day that the Second World War ended.
Wow.
That's kind of, it's mad to think.
That is mad. The changes that anybody who's reached 99 has seen, in that last 99 years, they have been, they've been big enough for me, right? I'm quite old, not there yet, but, the mobile phone thing, we didn't have mobile phones in my day.
Yeah.
We had to make plans and then turn up.
Yeah, it was really hard to cancel plans.
Really hard. Nowadays, to see,
Awful.
it was dreadful in those days. You had to actually go.
Terrible.
Awful, terrible. And then there'd be reverse calling your parents. You don't do any of that. You don't know about videos where you had to rewind them, or you would use them again.
I did have some
Did
of
you
those.
have some of that?
Yeah. I caught the tail end of the VHS.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was our whole world. I mean, setting the clock on a video recorder was a mathematical just impossibility. But the things that Attenborough has seen, nearly 100 years.
Yeah.
Just extra, and seeing what's happened to the planet, it is mind-boggling. But I saw Joanna Lumley, who's 79, saying that she's now, time is running out for her. Can't lose Joanna Lumley either.
Again, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news.
that.
We're going to have to lose these people at some point. But I'm surprised, Joanna Lumley, 79.
Yeah. She's also been sort of omnipresent, hasn't she, through so much.
Also loves doing documentaries.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Keir Starmer, however, hasn't been around that long, and certainly not politically, and I'm sure he won't be, unfortunately, for those who wanted a Labour government.
Yeah.
Message to Keir, not good enough.
Yeah, it's not looking great. Yeah, I think Labour MPs now. Well, it's quite interesting. Yeah, the local elections, obviously, Labour the general consensus they're going to move towards the right, which is absurd because if 6 people who voted Green voted for Labour in Runcorn and Helsby, Labour would have kept the seat. I don't think the direction should be towards the right because, as we were discussing earlier around the winter fuel, I think the damage is done. I think anyone who thinks that immigration is the biggest problem in Britain is never going to vote for Labour, no matter how harsh they are on immigration. And actually, in my experience online and doing podcasts and things like that, there are lots of people who voted Labour in the general election who now vote Green or Lib Dem. And that's not to say that the Green Party isn't a party with its own merit and its own votership. But actually, when we're talking about highly marginal seats at the next general election, I think the biggest difference will come from the progressive left moving to parties like the Greens and the Lib Dems.
Yeah, it is an interesting one, isn't it? Because I don't understand why Labour hasn't thought, look, we're not doing very well where we are. We should shift more to the left, because it seems that shifting more to the right is exactly what the Tories are doing as well. So everything's going to be over on the right, and surely Labour needs to shift more to the left.
Yeah, I think that's what most Labour people would say. I mean, he said, didn't he, we need to deliver, I hear you, I get it, we need to deliver faster. And then Tony Blair and Diane Abbott, an unlikely duo, both said, well, if everyone hates what you're doing, don't do that thing faster.
Yeah, don't do more.
They're just going to hate you quicker.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the net zero thing, I think, is also an issue for him. And the fact that a lot of people are saying, look, fix the economy first, please. Fix it. Because we can't afford, as individuals, to pay for what it takes to be net zero. Heat pumps, electric vehicles, all of those things. Nobody can afford that, right?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, we could just tax the oil companies and
we could just tax the billionaires and the big companies, but that seems to be really unpopular. I mean, where are they going to go? People can say, well, they'll leave the country. Well, where to?
Yeah,
America's not exactly.
And again, they don't pay anything now anyway.
So
we're not going to lose anything. If we just tax them, we'll catch some of them.
Yeah.
We'll
I agree. I agree. Absolutely, I agree. Right, let's. We've got a bit about a minute.
I think the only, not to end on a downer, the only British paper out of all of the front pages tomorrow that even mentions Gaza is The Guardian.
Yeah.
Every single British newspaper has chosen not to mention.
Not to mention the fact that they are now clearing out Gaza.
Yeah, I mean it's now not. I mean it's been this since 2023, but an overt policy of ethnic cleansing and genocide in Gaza, and one British newspaper runs the story.
It's extraordinary, actually, because that is a fundamental. Although it has been happening, this is now stated as an aim, and that is a massive story. But again, like you said, it's not getting the attention that it needs. It is funny old world at the moment. I think we slipped into an alternative time zone, and I'm sticking with that. That's my. It's not a theory.
Fine.
It's my truth, and that's just the way it is. Cody Darla, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
For coming in. Hopefully we'll see you very soon, and maybe by then you could have grown some hair or.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
A six-pack.
Yeah, I'll keep taking my estrogen tablets.
Just something. Cody, thank you. All right, coming up, it's just you and me, because it is the hour that we just do the phone in. No guests, everything else has been cleared out. It's just your opportunity to talk. And what I want to talk to you about is the story that has caught my eye. I found it absolutely fascinating, although I know nothing about the subject, so I'm going to need your help. Gamers who carry out virtual rapes in the metaverse should be charged as real-life sex attackers. How would that work? Should that work? Does a fantasy world translate to the real world? I really need you to give me a call on this. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, this is Petrie, and I am with you now until 1 o'clock this Wednesday morning. And I've got a real doozy for you today, because it is something that I am not experienced with. I'll be completely honest. I always am honest with you. So I don't understand this world. I don't understand really what's going on. But it is nonetheless a really interesting question, and that is, should gamers who carry out virtual rapes in the metaverse be charged as real life sex attackers? Now, immediately you go, no, absolutely not, ridiculous. No, it's fantasy, it's not real. But for some people, it is, isn't it? They go into a game as an avatar. They live their life as this avatar, and suddenly they are. And this happens a lot, apparently, which I don't understand, because I don't understand how the code is so easily broken. I don't get that. Surely you could write a line that says, "No avatar can rape another avatar." I mean, I would have thought. I don't know. Again, it's not my field. But there are professors and legal people who are suggesting that the metaverse is a ticking time bomb, and warned that the number of sex attacks is set to explode in the next few years. Meta rapes are going unpunished in the unregulated digital spaces. Now, I don't know if you remember, about a year ago, we had a conversation about a teenager whose avatar was gang raped in a game. And the police investigated it after she said that she suffered the same psychological trauma as a real life victim. Which at the time I thought, well, that's a bit rude, actually, to people who have genuinely been raped, right? To say that a virtual rape had the same trauma as an actual rape, but I don't know. I would say it wouldn't. I would say that is not a fair. I don't know. Because it hasn't happened to me. So the case last year, revealed by the Mail newspaper, was thought to have been the first time in the UK that police had investigated a virtual sex offence. Clearly nothing came of that, but gamers who carry out virtual rapes in the metaverse now should be charged as real-life sex attackers, a legal expert insists. Assaults are rife on digital avatars used by women and used by children. Now, although it says 18 in order to play the game, of course, a lot of children just say they're 18, I guess, and play the game. So there are children in there who, again, are being sexually assaulted, raped, gang raped, whatever. So I don't see how it can be the same, but also if we blame violence, which we have done in the past, young people being violent, that's because the Jamie Bulger killers, I remember it as clear as day, because it was quite unusual back in those days. We were told that they played violent games online, and they acted out that violence on Jamie Bulger when they were 9 and 10 years old. If that's true, then what's to stop somebody who rapes in a game acting that out in real life? So either both things are false or both things are true. I don't think one can be true and the other not. So I don't know, you tell me, is it possible that there's a learned behaviour in games that can translate to the real world? That's one thing. So you arrest somebody for a pre-crime, if you like. You say, right, we think you're going to go ahead and rape somebody at some point because you've been raping people in here, so we're going to arrest you. That's one thing. The other thing is to make the actual rape in the game a crime in itself, the same as a crime in the real world. I don't know. I think it's something that's got to be addressed, because if it is something that's increasing, and it's only going to get more realistic as we go through, isn't it? These tactile suits where you can feel somebody touches you in a game, you can feel it. If that was an attack, you would feel the attack. So maybe it is something we've got to address now. But do you think this is just stupid? This is nonsense. This is a fantasy world. Even that rape, although who would fantasize about rape, probably is a wrong one. Even that rape is a fantasy rape. It's not real. I don't know, you tell me. If you're a gamer, I want to hear your view on this. 0344 499 1,000. And if you're not a gamer, but maybe your kids are, okay, let me ask you this. If your son, let's say at the age of 13, 14, whatever, is playing a game, and within that game, he chooses his character to rape a female character, would you as a parent be okay with that? Would you as a parent say, oh, well, it was just a game. It was just a fantasy. It's not an actual rape. Because I can tell you that I would not have been okay with that, with my son. Even though I was probably okay with him stealing a car in Grand Theft Auto, I wouldn't be okay with his character raping another character. And I'm trying to I can't really explain that to myself, but I wouldn't have been okay with it. So I want to know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate. And you can message me as well. Put talk and your message to 87222. Let's go now to Jake, who's in Exeter, who can hopefully help me out with some of this stuff that I don't understand. Jake, good morning.
Hi, Petrie. Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. A little out of my depth on this one, Jake.
I have been listening, although I do admit I had to go into a meeting for an hour, so I missed a little bit. I came back when you were doing the headliners, but I was sort of, when you were just speaking just then, I was sort of speaking to myself at the same time and agreeing with everything that you were saying. But my question would be, as a gamer of over 20 years, is how are the children even getting access to these games and these like haptic suits and that sort of thing? Because I'm not saying that another thing that you've got to understand as well is that anything can happen on the internet. As soon as anyone goes online on the internet, anything can happen. I work in cybersecurity, but I've seen some horrible stuff.
How is that possible, Jake? If you work in security,
yeah,
in cybersecurity particularly, is it not possible for these games to code no rape?
So it's not the fact that the games have coded it in or haven't coded it in. It's the fact that the games provide a certain level of user-based development, if we can call it that. So like individual people can go away and create rooms and then build those rooms out in a type of code known as Lua, L-U-A.
Right.
And every bit of code that's in that room is built by those players, basically.
So separate from the code in the game.
Yeah. So as an example, there's a virtual reality game called VR Chat, which I believe this is where this is referenced from. That or Roblox, because both of those have actually been in the news and the headlines for this sort of thing for years now. And in like VR Chat, you can create spaces. I haven't used VR Chat in a good few years because of this sort of thing. And not only that, but I find the community a little bit overbearing at times, let's say. Which is another reason why children shouldn't really be going into these sort of games, because they can literally be interacting with anyone. Anyone can have like voice changes. If there's text-based chat, they may not necessarily speak, but they can entice people to go to a different room with them to play a game or something.
Right.
I've seen that happen. And yeah, I've seen people do some horrible stuff to try and get people to go into separate rooms.
What do they get out of this? I mean, okay, so we're talking...
So to your point on the haptic suit, sorry to interrupt you, Petrie, but to your point on like the haptic suit and the actual physical manifestation of like the raping going on itself, I don't think any of that would actually physically happen to anyone, because there's safeguards in place in the hardware to prevent that, or at least I would expect there to be. Not only that, but the parents have the control within these game platforms to put parental controls on. They can put various blockers on, which will block children from going into any 18+ rooms and these rooms have to be rated at 18 plus, just as any other game like.
But are a lot of parents? I mean, I'm well through this now. My boy is 27, but
sure.
I wouldn't have had the technical know-how. I mean, ask my team here. I can barely work the emails.
Sure.
You know,
can I ask you a quick question,
yeah.
Petrie? So when your son was 13, would you have let him watch an 18 game or watch porn?
No, God no.
Then why? Then sorry, an 18 movie rather than game. So why would you let him play an 18 rated game? So another one, not just Grand Theft Auto, but another thing along the same sort of lines as raping, but in Call of Duty, one of the games, there's a mission where you have to, and any other gamers that phone in will vouch for this, whereby you have to bypass 3 screens asking you if you're sure that you want to play this mission, because you can bypass it because there is horrific things that happen in it. No one was ready for what actually occurred in that mission.
What occurred?
And I'm telling, it was, so you have to go into an airport. I believe it was either an airport or a mall, and you have to shoot everyone in there.
Wow.
Children, civilians, everyone.
Wow.
And it's all in there as part of the storyline. And parents will go out and buy Call of Duty for their children and not even think about it.
Well, I probably don't even know, right? Because they don't understand. You know, I didn't really understand. I think my son was playing things like Lara Croft. I don't really.
Trust me, I grew up with video games on consoles like Grand Theft Auto and stuff. I taught my mum into buying me Grand Theft Auto 3 when I was like 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I was running around shooting people's heads off because I found it funny because the blood would squirt out the top of the bodies.
And would that have turned you into a violent person?
No, I've done personal training and I now work I work in cybersecurity. I wouldn't be able to work in cybersecurity if I was a violent person, because there's certain checks that you have to go through.
But there is this assumption or narrative that young men playing these games, and it is mostly young men, although I know a lot of young women do too, but mostly young men playing these games, that it can make them violent. That it kind of weakens your resolve because you're so used to killing people.
I would argue the point, because I was in Plymouth when that shooter went around Plymouth and killed those people, sadly, and people were trying to say to me stuff like it was all about the gaming that he was playing, and he was in various groups online, and it was very much based around the games he would play. And I just sort of turned around to them and said, well, it wasn't just the game. The game was a extenuating factor of the influence of the community that he was in.
So in other words, he was already a potential shooter before he started playing the game?
Because he was already in the community. All that he needed was that access to that weapon, which the police then re-granted him back from memory, if I'm correct.
But he could have practiced that shooting in the game.
Well,
and becoming inured to it. You know, the more you see something, the less it bothers you. Yeah, so you become inured to it. So maybe he was just already shooting, his blood spurting out, and he just thought, oh, this is, doesn't affect me.
I also competitively play airsoft, which is like a military simulation, like paintball style thing with real imitation firearms.
Right.
And we have to go through a licensing process to be able to get access to anything, and they don't even fire real bullets. They just sting you and BB pellets that just fling off your body and stuff. And we play Call of Duty style matches just in real life. And the one thing that computer games will never give you is the actual weight of the weapon that you're holding.
Right.
And the stamina that it takes to hold a weapon up and actually fire it, because even some of the airsoft guns can be quite heavy.
Right.
But I can imagine having to hold a shotgun up and then take that recoil from firing that shot. I think if that was his first time firing that gun, then he must have had a shock.
Yeah. So he could practice the actual shooting, but not the weight, like you said, the weight of the gun.
Yeah, not the physicality behind it.
But do games make this kind of killing less important in a way? That like I said, you just get inured to it. It's only It's not a real person. It's not a person I know, so I could shoot them. So you sort of get used to that in a game, and then go out on the street and you go, I've got no emotional feeling towards that person. I could shoot them.
I would agree with that. I would agree that there is that like emotional switch off that you can get, because I even get it sometimes if I'm like on a night out or something and someone says the wrong thing to me. Like I've got that, I can immediately switch myself off if I want to, and then just be like, what did you just say to me? And like I would go down that sort of process, but I will always normally not choose violence because it gets no one anywhere. But again, on that fact, it's sorry, what was the question again?
No, I mean, it's just about how you can get used to behaving in a certain way in a game and then translate that into the street.
Yeah, so
and that worries me with the number of virtual rapes that are happening at the moment, the incel brigade, the misogynistic.
This is the first time I've ever heard of it, if I'm honest with you, when you mentioned it earlier, which is what piqued my interest. And that was the first time I've ever heard of that. I've heard of like the child grooming going on Roblox and some of it going on in VR chat as well, because I follow that sort of thing from the investigators on YouTube.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've never heard about this whole like haptic suit raping thing in the like. I've heard about the rooms that characters can go into to have 18+ moments, let's say, putting it mildly.
But I don't. What's in it for anybody?
I don't know. I've never done it.
No, I'm not saying you have, but you might have a better understanding. To pretend to go into a room to have sex, or to not have sex.
See, to me, it's all about the community. To me, gaming's always been about community. Since I had my first computer, and I started playing like online role-playing games.
Yeah.
It was all about like building the community, making friends, having people to play with, and not just playing on your own.
Yeah.
And I just can't understand any other way about going about gaming, if I'm honest with you. Like there is no other sort of.
But then, you see, this is the thing. This is the question, isn't it? Is it that bad people do bad things in games, and good people don't do bad things in games, and therefore wouldn't do them in real life? But if those bad people are doing them in the games and they're learning how to do them, then they could do them in real life with a bit more confidence.
Yeah, so something that just crossed my mind is that like regardless of, because everyone plays these games, right? So if the logic is that games make people do this sort of thing, everyone should be doing it.
I agree. Yeah, it doesn't stack up. Yeah.
So there has to be some sort of, I wanted to use the word pre-configuration then, but that's not the right term, but some sort of like conditioning almost before then something sort of triggers them to go and act on an impulse, if that makes sense. But I can't understand why there is no disconnect between the virtual world and the real world. Because I play a lot on VR, I play a lot of like flight simulators in virtual reality. And when you take those VR goggles off, there is an instant hit of reality coming back to you.
Right.
Because it's a completely different like field of view.
But because you do flight simulators, right, in virtual world, would you be able to do them in the real world because of what you've learnt? Okay.
Yes.
So that kind of also plays into what I'm asking, in a way, is that you've learnt how to fly a plane in the virtual world, so you could do it in the real world. So if you learn how to rape in the virtual world, then that means you could do it in the real world.
Yeah, 100%. But then the follow-on question to that has to be, would you actually do it? And my answer would be, I would never ever try and fly a plane in my life, not without getting some real-world experience first.
I bet you though, you're waiting in an aircraft for somebody to say, "Oh no, the pilot's just. Can anybody fly a plane?" And then you can go, "Me, Jake here.
Yeah,
I can."
But not like I wouldn't be able to step into a plane and like take it off. I know how the flight simulator works. I don't know how the real airplane works. Because again, I've not felt the physicality behind the movement of the throttle, the movement of the.
Yeah, but you'd be better than me, right? I mean, you'd be able to, take over.
Well,
Every time when I go on holiday, I'm taking you with me, Jake. That's it. You're going to fly, so you can fly the plane if anything happens. Jake, brilliant. Thank you. I honestly
I just want to mention as well, just very quickly, that there are communities online that do protect people against this sort of thing and are actively hunting people down that do commit these sort of things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they're all over Discord. Like if you search up like safety groups and stuff like that, safety groups Discord or something like that, you can normally find a whole bunch of them on Google.
And they'll go into the game and protect somebody from a virtual attack?
Not necessarily go into the game, but they will find out who these people are and get them prosecuted in real life.
Wow! Oh my God! So there really is an overlap, isn't there?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same with like these telephone scammers as well, and targeting like elderly people. There are people online that actively hack into these call centers and get into people elderly age.
Oh, I love people like that.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's all over. You guys should really reach out to some YouTubers that have done this, like the research on this sort of thing before, because there are some ones that have done like almost 3-hour-long YouTube documentaries on this sort of thing.
Wow, I didn't even know this world existed because I'm so old.
Yeah. It's crazy, like the amount of blind spots that people have to these sort of things. But children are definitely one of the hot topics online. And they are one of the main hot topics that is extremely protected at all costs. If someone finds out that there's like a minor in a lobby of any game, like people will rush and tell them to log out.
Wow.
What are you doing in this game?
That's good to know.
Yeah.
That is good to know. I mean, like you said, the children shouldn't be there, but they're going to lie, right?
No, people will even, I've been even part of groups whereby people have kicked people that have sounded underage even slightly.
Really?
Just because they don't want to have that sort of responsibility, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think obviously that most people who are gaming are good people, right? And they will be protective and support each other and look out for each other. But if this sort of thing is going to increase, and they're saying that it's going to get much worse, the sex attacks are set to explode within the next few years, then all of you good guys are going to have to be.
Sorry, Petrie. There are various correlations between the times of day that things happen as well. So things normally happen after 9:30 at night and before 8 a.m.
Right.
So make of that what you will. But that's normally bedtime and just before school.
Yeah.
And that's when kids normally are like, I really want to keep playing this game.
Yeah.
So
it's
parents that are listening, just keep an eye out for those sort of red flags.
Yeah.
And then maybe go and have a little bit of an investigation, and if you need to, activate those parental controls on either the console or the laptops.
Yeah, and just figure out how to do that, because there will be, you know, you can probably Google it.
It's quite obvious if you go into the settings. It's like a big button that says parental controls, and then you just literally, it's a slider for each one that you want to activate.
I mean, I'm just grateful, really, that when my son was doing all these things, the games I don't think were where they are now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so grateful for that. And Jake, go on.
Sorry, one other thing just before we finish. That just popped into my head on the note of parental controls. If the parents aren't confident in doing it, take it into your local tech store and they will help you. Regardless, if you explain the situation, they will help you.
That is a really good bit of advice, because I would have had to have taken that. I think I'm not confident enough to do that.
Like CX, Curry's PC World, just speak to them, explain the situation, that you're a bit worried about your child, and I'm sure that they will go out of their way to help you.
That is an excellent bit of advice. Thank you, Jake. What a fantastic young man. Brilliant. I've got to take a quick break, but I will be back in just a moment. Don't...
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and I'll be here until 1 o'clock, and we've got a really interesting topic here, and one that I'm learning about as I go, because it's not in my wheelhouse at all. But the question I'm asking is, should gamers who carry out virtual rapes in the metaverse be charged as real-life sex attackers? Because legal experts are now saying this has got to happen, because there is set to be an explosion in the number of sex attacks that happen in the virtual world. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Grace is in London. Hi, Grace.
Hi.
Hi, Grace. What do you make of this?
Well, I'm thinking back to when I last played anything that was like a video game, and it was forever ago. I got completely addicted to The Sims 2 in my teens.
Right.
And then at some point I just stopped, and I have not played anything like that at all since then, and don't miss it. But I'm very aware that for young people, these things can be very, very addictive, and presumably they can be addictive for adults as well. And I think that it's fallacious for people to argue, as some might do, that, if people can do this in the virtual world, then that will stop them from targeting people in the real world. That's clearly not.
I think the opposite would be true.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some paedophiles argue that if they can have child sex dolls, it will prevent them from harming children. But then studies have found that it actually just worsens their inclinations towards children. We know that people who watch porn don't stop wanting to do things in real life, and in reality, violence between sexual partners has become worse in part because of the violence in pornography, and so So
there is a correlation, isn't it? It's almost like monkey see, monkey do.
Exactly, yeah. And I would say, in answer to the initial question, yes, people do need to be prosecuted, punished for these crimes in the virtual world, but not in the same way necessarily as in the real world. In part just because there's not the police time to sort out all the things that could be happening in the virtual world. Also, I think it would be wrong to say it's as serious to be assaulted in the virtual world as it would to be assaulted in the real world. But that doesn't mean to say that it's not traumatizing and a problem, because clearly it is. I really think we need to be tougher on people who are actual real world rapists, because I don't. If I say the word castration, I might sound a bit medieval, but I don't really know why it's not talked about. For people who are proven and anyway, just to stem the problem, to stop them being able to carry out.
Well, some offenders are offered chemical castration. Rather than a couple of bricks.
Yeah,
but
I don't know why it's not talked about more, because we need to prioritise protecting future victims, and I feel like there's not enough said about that. But that's a whole other topic. But I'm really worried about where our society is going regarding weird ideas on sex. We know that more and more young people think that strangulation is normal. Yeah. We've got various bits of our media seeming to try to normalise things that we hadn't considered normal until recently. I mean, I was reading something earlier about the new Blake Lively film and how that, or its predecessor, apparently features incest. And I know that the recent season of The White Lotus featured incest. We know that there's lots and lots of incest on pornography sites. I'm really scared that there's going to be more and more in our culture trying to normalise stuff that is not okay. And I feel like because people think that some of what was considered, that the right regulations around sex in the past was actually too prudish, there's been this swing in the other direction that's going too far and is going to hurt people. And I'm really worried about that. I feel like people think that because we need liberation in all sorts of ways, some people are taking it too far, and there's some kind of normalising of things like that, which I just mentioned, which actually are not good for human beings.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the violence that you're talking about. You're absolutely right, and this is kind of what concerns me about these virtual rapes is that, again, I would agree with you that I think it would be very difficult to align that with actual rape in the real world. I think that would be very, very difficult to say they are the same. Although somebody's trauma is somebody's trauma, right? We can't speak to that because they may be more traumatized by a virtual rape than you and I would be. But it is also a case, though, that these are behaviors that are concerning, right? So whoever it is in these virtual worlds that are thinking that it's okay or it's fun or something like that to virtually rape somebody, that is a brain pattern of behavior that should be deeply concerning.
It should be sending off alarm bells. And I think I'm also very, very concerned about what's already going on in the online world. It's not often enough talked about, but there are significant numbers of British men who are paying to watch children being abused in poorer parts of the world, as well as in this country. But we know that, that there are families in some developing countries who have their children do things on camera for the sake of British men. It's the only way that they can put food on the table. And those British men need castrating. But
I agree. And there was a teacher actually in Battersea, I think, who was very. If you look it up, you'll see the story. It was that sort of behaviour, and a lot of people think, well, he's only watching. He's only watching. It's like, with the Hugh Edwards stuff as well and all of that. It's like, well, he was only... But no, or AI pornography. It's like, no, these are children are actually being abused. He may not be being the one that's abusing them directly, physically, but because of him, they're being abused. And that's the same thing.
Yeah, and it adds to the appetite. We know that the dopamine pathways in the brain just want more and more when they see these things, and so things become more and more disturbing and disgusting. I mean, I read an article recently in The Guardian where there were a couple of men who'd been prosecuted for watching child pornography, and they said they hadn't even realised that they were interested in it, but they got into these chat rooms in watching other kinds of porn, and their brains were just looking for more and more disgusting, extreme things, because the dopamine wiring with an addiction just wants more and more nasty stuff, and it escalates. And I feel like for a lot of humanity's history, some men have done disgusting things to other human beings. And back in ancient Rome, it was considered fine for men to do whatever they wanted, and then we had this kind of change in worldview, and we came to think actually maybe human beings shouldn't treat each other like that. I personally think that God has given some restrictions around sexuality, in part because he loves us and he knows better than we do what's best for us. And we kind of thought, actually, we should treat other human beings as though they have value and worth. But then some people have presumed that all restrictions around sex must just be to be nasty and unpleasant and prudish. And actually, not all restrictions are necessarily bad. And if you go too far the other way and you just think the only thing that matters is pleasure, the only thing that matters is maximizing enjoyment, then you end up with some human beings suffering. And I just feel like we're going too far the other way. I feel really worried about the direction things are heading in when you've now got mainstream media programs normalizing things that should not be normalised.
But they don't they also put these things on like a White Lotus to shock? I mean, art has always been there to provoke and to shock and to get people to say, oh gosh, that's revolting. It doesn't mean it normalises it. It may be pointing to it and saying that's not right.
But they put so much of what we think about as the sexual liberation that's happened over the last half a century, I think is actually just motivated by capitalism. Sex sells, and therefore media puts it in front of us because it gets eyeballs and clicks, and then more people watch it. But like you say, it shocks, but then it ceases to shock eventually, and then they have to find something more shocking.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Grace. I think a lot of what you say is absolutely right. I mean, as far as sex is concerned, it's completely fine. Anything goes between two consenting adults where nobody gets hurt. Anything else, if people are getting hurt, then it's absolutely not fine. Grace, thank you very much indeed. I've got to take a break. Running out of time. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and you're with Petrie. It's time now to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning a weekend away in Munich at the end of May to watch the biggest game in European football, the Champions League final. We're also putting £5,000 in your pocket to spend however you want.
Win a once-in-a-lifetime trip to watch the Champions League final live. Go to talksport.com/win for your chance to embark on the ultimate odyssey of football ecstasy. With 2 tickets to the Champions League final live at the iconic Munich Football Arena, Germany, including flights, accommodation, and an uber-massive £5,000 in your hand. How about that? Enter online now at talksport.com/win. Terms and conditions apply. Achtung, baby.
18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win that VIP trip, simply text the word football to 83338 by the 16th of May, 11 p.m. A text will cost you £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have bill payer's permission, or you can just send your name and number by post to Champions League Final Comp, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP. It must arrive by 5 p.m. on May the 21st.
So don't miss out on that incredible giveaway from our colleagues at TalkSport. Best of luck to you. Right, let's get back to the phone in now. We're talking about whether gamers who carry out virtual rapes in the metaverse should be charged as real-life sex attackers. Got some messages I want to read here. Robin has said, if you played Grand Theft Auto and drove a car at 200 miles per hour and crashed it, would you be expected to be fined or have your licence taken away? No, it's not real. Surely the law can only deal with reality. And Robin, that's sort of logically where I come from, all right? But is it different with the intention of wanting to sexually assault somebody? I don't know. I don't know, but that's kind of makes logical sense, right? There's no comparison with reality. There's an off switch on the computer if you don't like what's going on, unlike real life. I'm an avid gamer and I have no problem differentiating gaming from reality. First-person shooters has never made me feel like going out and killing people. Oh, and I'm 72 and I've been playing games for the past 45 years. And that's from George in Luton. But I just wonder if you were that way inclined and you started to learn how to do it online, but then I suppose you could do it anyway, couldn't you? It wouldn't have any, I don't know. This one, though, is from R, from Wiltshire. And R says, I am a rape victim and also a heavy user of virtual reality. If someone tries to touch me in VR, I can press a button and block them, or I can take my headset off. You cannot do that in real life. It's an insult to real life victims of rape to say virtual assault is the same or is real. And I agree with that too. Oh, I don't know. I think this is going to get a bigger problem. I think it's going to become a bigger issue. Alex, first-time caller from here in London. Alex, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. What made you want to call in today?
Oh, it's just the craziest question I've ever heard in my life. I've never called into a radio station. I just couldn't believe that we were even entertaining the idea that virtual rape was anywhere close to regular rape. And I suppose I had a question for you. I mean, what do you think virtual rape looks like?
I have no idea, but I know that the police looked into a case last year after a teenager was gang raped online. Right, yeah, so her avatar was gang raped. Hang on, and officers concluded, having spoken to her, that she suffered the same psychological trauma as a real life victim. It was the first time the UK police had investigated a virtual sex offence.
Well, I think the word gang rape is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, and I think this says an awful lot about the British police service. If they're, finding that is equivalent to a real physical assault.
I mean, I would agree with you, but then apparently this young woman was so traumatised, and they had psychologists look at her, and her mentally she felt she had been raped. And yet I've just read out that story from R in Wiltshire, who says, look, I'm a rape victim, and it's wrong to say that the two things are similar. And I would agree with that. But it's just an interesting question that's been posed by professors and lawmakers who are now saying that if somebody sexually assaults somebody online, should they be attacked?
But this is
I don't know. I don't play these games. I don't know whether they take clothes off. I don't know if there's virtual penetration. I don't know what that looks like.
What do you think? If somebody's in VR, and I don't want to get too graphic in the thing, but a haptic suit is just a wetsuit with rumblers on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing there that you can possibly get raped by. If worst case scenario, if somebody's saying something mean to you, you can turn off the computer.
I agree. And yet why is it that now there are genuinely serious people who are talking about this as being a real problem and a danger to people? Now, whether it's because if you become inured to the idea of rape and you just, your character is sort of raping everything that moves, does that mean that you're more likely to go out and rape in the real world? I don't know. I think a lot of people have always tried to say that violence online does cross over to violence on the street. So,
but that's been debunked, hasn't it?
I don't know whether it's been entirely debunked, because there is a sense of that young people nowadays, they are not. It's not that they don't know the difference between reality and the virtual world. It is just that you become inured to it. You just become. It's just people aren't people. You start to lose empathy. So it may not make you violent, but it can certainly remove a very important part of our psyche.
I mean, that's not. I think the biggest danger here is the older people in this country seem unable to understand why younger people do the things they do. To put it all down to, violent video games or horror movies is what's the word?
Too simple.
it's too, kids are bad these days. Bad things happen to good people, and I don't think it's to do with, being able to murder somebody in a video game. Do you know what I mean? It's not just because there's a correlation, it doesn't mean there's a causation. And it is far too simple. And in answer to your question about why people are asking this question, it's because these researchers have got funding and they want to increase their impact factor on their journal articles.
And yet you do have this real life victim who felt victimised enough to go to the police that we know of. That went to the police.
She's using the word trauma, right? And trauma has become one of these words that no longer means anything. You have that terrible story that you mentioned earlier on with R, who was genuinely assaulted and had actual trauma, and then you're using the same word to refer to somebody, I don't know, like virtually removing somebody's clothes on their avatar. I mean, what are we doing here?
But by the way, I'm not using these words. These words are used in the writings and the studies that I've got in front of me, and by the victim. But I don't know whether it's as simple as just saying, oh, come on, it can't be the same thing, because we're not her, this teenager. And I think that people do feel things in a different way. And maybe she's just somebody who's, I don't know, a little bit hysterical or easily, to use the word trauma or traumatic. But there is no doubt that it does have an impact on people.
Well, then,
in the virtual world. I mean, my answer to that would be, well, don't go into the virtual world anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that seems very simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a daughter. She doesn't go online. I mean, this is an issue for parents to handle. I don't think this is, and if this country starts arresting people for virtually, like teabagging somebody, in Call of Duty, we're not living in a free liberal society anymore.
And yet, I posed this earlier on. I don't know if you heard me saying it. That when my son was younger, I would not be happy with his virtual character raping another virtual character.
Yeah, of course
I would be disgusted. But why would I be disgusted if it's just like you said? It's just
Well, it's bad behaviour, right? It's
so it is bad behaviour. So it is bad behaviour for him to be the rapist, but we don't accept that the virtual rape victim would also feel a certain way.
Yeah, no, but it's the same. It's the same sort of like, it's not equivalent, right? So if my daughter were to send a rude message to somebody, I would be annoyed with her. I would explain to her that you can't do that. But it's not illegal.
But it would be virtual. It's not real.
But it's just all the same sort of bad behaviour, right? I don't really see much of a difference between somebody. And it's the word rape has got so many connotations. I don't think it works in this sentence. But if a child or a person virtually and inverted commas rapes somebody, I don't think that's a criminal offence. I mean, it's terrible behaviour. They should be banned from the game. I can think of all sorts of things that should happen to that person, but for the police to get involved, the technology would have to move forward so far for it to become an issue. And I don't think we're anywhere close to that.
But is this something we need to get to grips with before we get close to it and start saying, well, actually, behaviours in these virtual worlds can impact people in the real life?
Well, that's true, yeah. I think behaviour in a virtual world can impact people.
Yeah.
But I think we've got far more pressing issues than the prevalence of virtual gang rape. than, first and foremost, actual rape.
Yeah,
right?
no, I agree. And listen, Alex, there's still far too few people who are actually being sent down for rape in the real world. Alex, brilliant to talk to you. Thank you. Please call again. I've got to take a quick break. I'm really in trouble, but I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you for the next sort of 5 minutes, actually, gosh. Interesting point that's just been made to me, and that is cyberbullying. Which is, cyberbullying is an intent to harass another person, or which the perpetrator knows or reasonably ought to know amounts to the harassment of another person. So if you extend that, so it's a criminal offence to do that. Right? It's the Protection from Harassment Act of 1997. It's a criminal offence to commit an act of cyberbullying. And so virtual rape would be an extension of that. So if cyberbullying is a criminal act, then virtual rape should also be a criminal act for the same reasons. The intent to harass somebody. So that's just a very interesting point. Anybody that's been affected by these talks of rape, virtual or otherwise, I want to give you some numbers. So rape crisis, England and Wales, is 0808 500 222 222, 0808 500 222 222, and sarsas.org.uk, support for people affected by rape of any kind of sexual assault or abuse at any time in their lives. So if this has triggered a memory for you, the number for this is 0808 801 0456, 0808 801 0456. Last call goes to Robert in Hertfordshire. Hello, Robert. How are you?
Hi, Petrie. I'm not a gamer, but I play checkers online worldwide quite seriously. I mean, there's 1,000 people playing worldwide all the time. But it don't. After I play checkers, it don't make me the next day want to go out and leapfrog over someone's back. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure it's quite the same. I'm not sure it's quite the same thing. And I think potentially because you and I are not gamers, we don't get the reality of it. I think that it does become immersive. It's designed to be immersive, right? So you actually, while you're playing the game, you become that character.
Now, if you're a wrong un, Petrie, I don't subscribe to that. If you're a wrong un, you're a wrong un. You know, it's as simple as that. It might. You know, I agree with the last guy, actually. I've got a quick humorous story to tell you about Grand Theft Auto 1. We used to, before we sold up and came in, we lived in a 4-storey Georgian house in Clerkenwell. Underneath, we had half the house, and underneath us was my mother-in-law. And this is about 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when Grand Theft Auto first came out. They brought out a London version, and my son Charlie, down in his 40s, Dad, look, our house is in it. And what they'd done, they must have done it like Google Maps. It was our street and our house, even our front door.
No.
So my mother-in-law lived underneath. So I said, oh. So what I did was I machine gunned her window and slung an hand grenade through her window. But it was funny.
You did not.
It didn't make me want to go out and do it in real life.
Yeah, but it